Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our September 10th, 2024 Madison County Fiscal Court meeting. This is a regular scheduled meeting here at 304 Chestnut Street at the Berea Council Chambers. We always appreciate Mayor Fraley and the Berea Council allowing us to use their space. It's always good to be in Berea. At this time, I'd like to call this meeting to order. Clerk Barger, if you will, please call the roll.
Master Combs.
Here.
Master Lockmuller.
Here.
Master Hughes.
Here.
Master Baca.
Present.
Judge Taylor.
Here. At this time, I'd like to invite Brother Joey Kays from Emmanuel Baptist Church here in Berea up to lead us in a word of prayer. Joey, I appreciate you. Appreciate you being here.
Thank you for having me. That's great. Father, we are thankful today for the blessings of life. We're thankful for another day of life, and that your creation. We just pray you'll give us a good day today and protect us, keep us safe. We pray, Father, for this fiscal court. Just grant them wisdom, guidance, direction. We pray your hand of blessing will be upon them. We're thankful for all those who serve in our county government. We just pray that you'll be with them. And just help us as citizens of this community to pray for them, to lift them up to you. We pray for our law enforcement, all those who serve this community. We're so thankful for them. We're grateful for them. And we just pray you'll bless them in their meeting today. Pray that all will be done decently and in order. Bring honor and glory to your name. Guide and direct us today and protect us. We pray this in Jesus' name.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Tom, if you will, lead us in pledge.
Everyone stand, please. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
may be seated.
Thank you all. Members of the court, y'all have had a chance to look over the previous meeting minutes. That was our meeting that was on August the 27th. It was a regular scheduled meeting. I need a motion and a second to approve, please.
So move. Second.
Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Master Lockmuller.
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Baca.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Next is, Treasurer's Report. It'll be at our next fiscal court meeting. We always do it on our fourth Tuesday or second meeting of the month. First order of business today is a proclamation recognizing Constitution Week. Ms. Deborah, if you want to come up to say a few words, you can. I'll go ahead and read the proclamation. And whereas it is the privilege and duty of the American people to commemorate the 237th anniversary of the drafting of the Constitution of the United States of America with appropriate ceremonies and activities. And whereas Public Law 915 guarantees the issuing of a proclamation each year by the President of the United States of America designating September 15th through the 21st as Constitution Week. Now therefore, I, Reagan Taylor, by virtue of the authority vested in me by the County of Madison and the State of Kentucky and the Madison County Fiscal Court, do hereby proclaim the week of September 15th through the 21st as Constitution Week, and urge all citizens to study the Constitution and reflect on the privilege of being an American with all the rights and responsibilities with that privilege involves. Deborah?
I'm from the Jemima Boone chapter of DAR, and we have had a lot of pleasure in doing this with our kids here in this community. Last year, thanks to many members of our fiscal court, they came and helped us do a presentation of the proclamation and the activities associated with our Constitution in order to respect our community and teach them how important it is not only to be a member of the community but to participate. And we just hope we've done a good job of it. We contacted over 900 children and gave out constitutions to them all. And I was amazed with one child. We were teaching them how they wrote with quill and ink. And he said, I didn't know what we the people meant. And so we got a chance to teach him about the fact that we are all people dedicated to this community. And that for me was a personal big thing. But thank you all for the service you render to us and the good things that happen in this community, because all you have to do is watch TV and know that it's really scary out there. And it's nice to live in a safe, well-run community. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you.
The only bad thing about this is I'm the short one here.
Thank you, Deborah. Appreciate you a lot. Next is the Madison County Animal Shelter follow-up. At our last meeting, we had some citizens that came in that had concerns about the shelter, and so I told the court that we would take those comments and research those comments to see if what was true and what was not. And so Maggie, our director, and Jill, our deputy judge executive, they've actually put together a PowerPoint here today, taking some of those comments and some of those the false information, just to clarify it with the fiscal court and the magistrates and our governing body, so that we know what's truly going on. Okay, Jill, thank y'all for being here.
Absolutely. Welcome, and thank you for allowing this opportunity. I think that we had a perfect storm last week, or 2 weeks ago. Unfortunately, both Maggie and I were not able to be at that particular fiscal court meeting due to some health obligations, and so I appreciate the court's willingness to let us follow up in this manner. We've got a lot of stuff we're going to share with you today about the facts and operations of the animal shelter. I'd like to take a minute to introduce Maggie Ratliff. She is our Animal Care and Control Director. Maggie, would you like to introduce yourself? And
Good morning, fiscal court and community members. Thank you all for allowing me the time to introduce myself and introduce plans, ideas, and pathways for our beloved animal shelter. My name is Maggie Ratliff, and the new Animal Care and Control Director for our county. After graduating from Berea College on May 5th, 2024, I began my position here at the animal shelter 3 days later on May 8th. I took this opportunity for 2 reasons. I wanted a job where I could combine my 2 passions, animal care and welfare, and contributing to my community. There are a lot of jobs I could have taken and make more money or pad my resume, but I did not take those jobs. I chose this one. I have a connection and passion for animals that goes back to my childhood, and I feel fortunate enough to get to do this work every day in our community. Since beginning my role here at the shelter, I have dedicated the beginning portion of my time here in learning the shelter operations, but also researching other shelters and facilities around us to see how they have found success in their communities, which have included visits to their facilities. During this time, I have focused on learning the story of our shelter in regards to its past, present, and recommendations for its future. I began the brainstorming process of applying for more grants, increasing our events that are inviting, exciting, and educational, as well as how we, as a shelter, can better serve our community through animal-based services, education, and advocacy. When I started, our team was almost as new as I was, which prompted my initiative to begin daily team huddles and even engaging activities for our staff and residents at the shelter. We've spent a significant amount of time focusing on making sure we did things in the best possible way for our animals. As I began to learn more of the shelter and opportunities available for us, I began noticing areas of improvements, such as technology use and implementation, efficiency and completion of tasks, cleaning procedures, euthanasia procedures, and community education materials. In collaboration with our county attorney, Jeannie Hammond, we are in process of revising our standard operating procedures and our adoption applications. After increased calls and requests of information regarding community cats, strays, and feral felines, I have been researching community resources to further support in trap, neuter, release programs, including working with the Fayette County's program, hopefully in the future. When hired for this position, I took it on to serve the community with a passion and purpose for these animals. Since being here, I have been able to grow and learn exponentially to better serve our community and the services that we provide for our community. Animal advocacy, care, and rights are causes that drive the work my team and I have the privilege of doing in this community each day. I look forward to the community engagement, collaboration, and support for the future of our shelter to better the lives of our residents, finding amazing homes, and begin to decrease this cycle of strays and feral animals in our county. Thank you all for your time, and I'm going to turn it back over to Jill as she will present some follow-up and history around our shelter and its operations.
Thank you, Maggie. There's been a lot of conversation, and Maggie's new to her role. You all know that. The fiscal court knows that. You were part of that, and I think it's important for you all to know and understand the people who work at our shelter every single day, they're not there for the money. They're not there because it's a glorious, glamorous job. We all know that. When we go out there, it's not somewhere that you desire to be. You have to have a passion for animal care and animal welfare to do that work every day. And Maggie probably sold herself a little short in telling a little bit about her why, because her why is very personal. And there's a reason that she chose this job, and we have an appreciation for that. And I think it's important for the court to know that as well. We're going to cover a lot of things today, and I just wanted to give you all a little overview of what those things are. And what we're going to address, and hopefully this is going to answer some of your questions that you may have. And then we will also cover all of the questions and complaints and accusations that you heard 2 weeks ago. We're not perfect. We have the opportunity of improvement every single day. That's why we're all here. And we work towards that every single day with every single conversation. And so we will continue to do that under this administration. But there's some things that we really need to be clear on. You know, KRS outlines the role of animal shelter and animal control. We're going to kind of show you a little bit of a financial overview of where we were and where we are now and the investments that's been made. We're going to talk about Mr. Bennett's legacy donation, how we're currently staffed. As I said before, some of the concerns that were brought to the fiscal court, and then also our volunteer policies. So just so you all know, obviously if you have a question or something, let me know and we can pause, but we'll kind of jump right in. The state of Kentucky and the revised statutes outlines the requirements of animal care and control. And that's what we are and we always are going to follow. Animal control programs are designed for a certain reason. And for those of you who may not know, the history of that goes back to rabies outbreak. Each county has to have a sheltering facility, and it has to have an animal control officer to meet the minimum care standards. These programs are designed to ensure that pet owners exercise proper care and control of their animals and don't become a nuisance to the community. All of these things that you see up there are some of the things that we encounter, but also some of the things that the state says we're going to encounter. And animal sheltering is designed to provide a safe, humane housing for dogs and cats which have been separated from their owner, confiscated, whether that's for a cruelty case or impounded for law violations. But it's also part of the role of the animal shelter is reporting of lost and found pets. And that's sometimes one of the things that we forget is a role of the shelter. It's not the role of Facebook to determine lost and found pets. And sometimes we have to forget that we've got to give the opportunity for an owner to come and claim their maybe lost pet. And state law designates that, hey, that is one of the roles of the shelter. I wanted to point that out because sometimes that gets lost in the mix of a role, and that is something that we can always do better. I mean, with helping, making sure that we identify who's the owner. But some of that goes back to a little bit of animal control law. It's not the responsibility of the government to go on someone's property and take their animal from them. And I think that sometimes that gets a little confusing And so we'll kind of step on that a little bit more. The requirements that are outlined in KRS is maintains the requirement of the county is to maintain an animal shelter or enter into a local agreement, whether that be as a regional shelter or with a partnering city or county to provide a regional shelter. And then you can see there below there's some outlines of really specific things that are required by law that we must do. Keep male and female animals separated, provide holding areas, to be able to quarantine for symptoms of rabies, things of that nature. So you can see all of those things there. That's exactly what is required by law from us. And I say that and kind of explain that just a little bit because what is nice to have and what you must have are often two different things. And I think that we all want to live in the world of what's nice to have, but that's different than what we must have. Other things that are important, I think, for the court to know is provide access to the public for no less than 24 hours in 1 week, with those hours being posted. Ensure that we employ a euthanasia methods that are outlined by the American Veterinary Medicine Association. We actually have certified people, so our animal control officers, we require them, the fiscal court requires them to be certified in order to do that, meaning that they go through that extensive training process. It's not something that is just I grew up on a farm. It's not something that you do it the way my grandfather may have done it 40 years ago. It's a licensed training certification. And also maintain a record on each animal that has been impounded. And those records are required by law to be maintained for 2 years. So we may maintain them longer than that because that's a choice of the fiscal court, but state law says you have to maintain those records for 2 years. And those include things like the date they were impounded, the location, all of the things you see outlined there. So we kind of forget sometimes about what is required by law, and I think that it was important for the court to know that, so that you know what we're doing and what is we're standing up for. Another thing that I think is really important for the fiscal court to realize, because you are the fiscal court for that matter, and this is how the shelter funding and how has that changed and what does it look like. As a mandated service from the state of Kentucky, general fund dollars is what covers most of the expenses. This is supplemented by grants, donations, our agreement for animal control services from the city of Berea. And now you can see how that has and continues to change. If you look back at 2022 and what that number is, I'm not a mathematician, so I did look it up, but that's a 41% increase over 4 years. I mean, I see Billy Ray kind of squirming a little bit when I see that, because I know that he's like, well, that's 41% is a lot. But if you look at our contributions and what that's looked like over the course of the last 4 years, that's a 41% increase. That is us applying for grants, us working toward more productive, being efficient, us using technology and things so that we can do more with less. And you can see how that has changed. We're very, very fortunate in this community that we have had long support and generosity from our community. We have people that are willing to donate everything from pet toys to dog food on an almost daily basis. And and that means a lot. I mean, generosity can't be understated. We've always been able to support the shelter through those donations. And we're really grateful for that because it truly makes a difference. And it supplements all of the things that we are able to do with general fund dollars. So I said that about generosity, and I think that there is an appreciation when people support our community, and that goes even further with the generosity that the fiscal court experienced from Mr. Tony Bennett, not the famous singer, but a Madison Countyan. In 2019, Mr. Bennett left the balance of his estate to the Madison County Fiscal Court. Judge Taylor, Tom, I think you were both in office at that time, and to be earmarked and designated for the animal shelter. And the money was always intended to be used in an impactful way. I think that is what Mr. Bennett wanted. I think that's what his estate executors communicated that was a part of that. And initially there were conversations, looking back through records, there were conversations about using that for a spay and neuter program, or using a little bit here and a little bit there. And I think that when somebody gives you a gift of that magnitude that is their legacy, you want it to be impactful, and you want it to be impactful on the community, and you want it to be able to bear their name for many years to come. And so that decision was made by the fiscal court at that time, and to put that money in a designated investment account. So despite what may be said, or what Facebook posts may be out there, or what hearsay may be, that $190,897.27 was put into a proper investment account, and it's been collecting interest for our community. So we've taken that money and we've grown that money for the betterment of our community. And that money has remained in that account, and it's untouched. It has only grown. It has not lessened. So as we embark on conversations about the future of animal care and animal control, what that looks like, you know, the goal has always been to dedicate something in Mr. Bennett's name. That has not changed, and I think it's important, and I think the fiscal court will think it's important to be able to use his name to honor him and his legacy, and his significant gift that he's given, which is more now than it was then. And I think that's important. We've taken a generous donation and been able to grow it for a greater impact on Madison County. And I think that that's what we want to do with tax dollars. That's what we want to do with generosity. And so we're fortunate that we have other people who've made similar gifts. We've got some commitments already as we started discussing plans for a new shelter that came to us and said, hey, I want to make a significant gift to that because that's important to me. And this is how you honor them to ensure that that continues to happen. So a little bit, and kind of still talking around financial, and one of the reasons that our financial overview looks a little differently now than it did 4 years ago, it's been the fiscal court's support of increasing our staffing. This is something, recruitment and retainment of staff at our animal shelter has been a long-standing problem. I have been told by people who've been around and worked in that environment for the last 20 years that it's been a struggle for 20 years. We have traditionally had high amounts of turnover because, as you know, the work's not glorious. It's not fun to clean kennels. It's not glamorous. I joke with our staff sometime and tell them that I wish Mike Rowe would come and do an episode of Dirty Jobs at the animal shelter, because it's not great work to clean kennels every day. I grew up on a horse farm. I know what cleaning, mucking stalls is like. I didn't like it then. That's why I went to college. That's what I tell my dad all the time, because I didn't want to do that for a living. And you have to love it to do it. But that's not to say we haven't had challenges in that area. This is currently, we are staffed at, we have 7.5 FTEs for the Animal Care and Control Department. As Maggie mentioned, she began on May 8th. We have 2 animal control officers. One, Bobby, who is our lead animal control officer, he returned to us because he did love the work and was passionate about it. He returned to us in January of 2023. And then our second animal control officer, Tristan, joined us newly in June of 2024. but there's a lot of time in there when there's just one. And so over the course of my 3 years, looking back, we have had about 6 months where we have been able to be fully staffed. And I think if you look back the 3 years before that, I think it was probably, you'd probably say a total of 5 to 7 years. And I don't know, Judge Taylor or Tom, in your 9 years, if there's many times that we've been fully staffed. We have increased the number of kennel techs, and for this reason, because there is high turnover. And our longest serving kennel tech was hired in February. Obviously we have a new staff, and with new staff comes challenges and hurdles and learning curves. And then we have one person who serves as a receptionist, adoption and rescue assistant. She greets people at the door, she gets donations, she does special events, she does all of those kind of front of the house administrative duties, with the support of Maggie. So that is currently kind of the model in which we're staffed. So that staff count has gone up, and it's gone up in our time here. And so I think that's important to know that, hey, that investment that you're continuing to make is putting more boots on the grounds to do more things and to do more work in which they're passionate about. So kind of part of there was something that was shared with me this week, and I feel like I need to share it with the court too, that there's a picture that's been painted in the past few weeks, and that maybe only one color was used in that painting. And I think part of us doing our due diligence in making the court understand is we're going to use all the colors in the painting. And so I kind of wanted to walk you back a little bit over the course of the last year. And I know this is a little difficult to read because there's a lot. And so I'm going to kind of share some of that. Obviously, last September, October, I would say, is kind of when some of our initial challenges really started. We had 2 of our 3 animal control officers that had to be separated during that time. We announced the plans for a new shelter during that time, and started kind of working on that. Come January, things really kind of picked up, I guess I'll say. And our director, who was the director at the time, asked to discontinue the inmate work program because of some challenges we were having with the collaboration there. And then also in January, at the end of that month, our director at that time resigns. She had a goal to have a little bit more work-life balance, and we respect that. And so that happened in January. February, March kind of rolls around, and our notice so our director's gone. We were actively interviewing, and our former director was actually on the interview panel and committee for a new director. We really want to get a right fit, and so we did interviews and were without for a period of time until Maggie started. Fiscal court agreed. If you all remember, we were sitting here in Berea, and we had what I would call a staffing crisis. We had a kennel tech that decided to go home on Friday and move away and not return on Monday. The next week, we had our longest kennel tech worked until 4:30 on Friday and sent us an email at 6:08, I'll never forget, at home saying that she quit and she'd never be back. But thank you, I loved my job. And so when you go from 4 people to 2 people, that's what I would say we got to the crisis. And you all will remember that we had to adjust our hours. We brought that before the fiscal court to adjust our hours temporarily in order to maintain the level of excellence that we needed to do, to clean, to do those things. And so we shifted our adoption open hours for temporarily during that time. April rolls around, and we had actively, through March and the beginning of April, we started hiring kennel techs and getting them onboarded, training them, because that doesn't happen overnight, to do proper cleaning procedures. We were awarded a great spay and neuter grant And we had already started actively taking in-shelter animals to be spayed and neutered before adoption, which was a huge shift in culture from our shelter. And so that all happened in April as we're trying to get our feet back together. I would say that was kind of your rebuilding time. Looking up in May, we hired Maggie, and she started in May full time. We continued to train staff because we had all new staff, so we continued to train them and get them up to speed. And that included reviewing documentation processes. That included how we were doing things. One of the things that has been a pretty significant shift is there was a period of time in the history of the shelter where we would do stuff on paper and we would put it on the desk and say, okay, we did the intake that we're supposed to do, and then we'd go back and we'd put it in the animal track system. Well, I come from the healthcare world, and something's only as good as what's documented. That's what we trained nurses on for 10 years. And so that's a lot of double work too. So if somebody is taking it and they're writing it down and then there's somebody else who's got to go put it in, that's not efficient. And so we kind of transition that to, hey, we're going to do intake immediately. We're not going to do it on paper and do it on the computer. We're going to do it one time because when you're stretched pretty thin, the last thing you want to do is something twice. So those are some changes that Maggie kind of mentioned. Immediately, we started the implementation, and I have to say this, and because I think we're grateful, there was a local business here in town that when we were in this staffing crisis, that they stepped up to help our shelter clean for days because they knew we didn't have staff to do it. And as part of that process, and them supporting Maggie and Bobby and Leah and our kennel techs that were there at the time, we learned about a product called Kennesaw that they told us about. And it was a great alternative. Bleach had been used in our, I'm going to say for 40 years. That's how long the shelter's been there. So I'm going to guess that bleach had been used in our shelter for 40 years. And Maggie did a cost analysis to say, hey, Kennesaw is more expensive, but it kills more disease. It's better for our animals. We use less of it. And man, it controls odor much better. And so with our new budget in July, what are those big tubs called? They're called something. Drums. 50. We brought in a 55-gallon drum of Kennesaw and changed the way we do things. That's process improvement, you all, and that's what we're doing.
When did that start, Jill?
That started. We actually ordered it prior to the new fiscal year, but it was received and paid for in July, and it was part of the new fiscal year budget. We were spending an outlandish amount of money on bleach, and we all know that it's going to break down materials, fencing, concrete, all those sorts of things. And so this has been a great alternative. And I have to say the staff at Four Paws Unleashed helped tell us about that. I'm going to give credit where credit is due. Maggie did the homework, and I said, hey, you got to show me the case of where this is going to save us money and be better for the shelter. And our team did that, and we got good outcomes because of it. So I think that's how process improvement is supposed to work. Also, during that May time period, Maggie's getting her arms around a new shelter, of a new environment. She went and visited other shelters that are in our area that have good outcomes and get rave reviews to learn from them, learn about their procedures, learn what they do well, what they struggle with, and kind of built that network of, hey, how do we do things better, and how can we make these same sorts of improvements here? And that included setting some goals for the first 6 months of with any new leader. We're going to sit down and we're going to say, hey, okay, what's some of the goals we're going to have for the first 6 months, and what's some low-hanging fruit? During June, as we move to June, that is when you all will remember the fiscal court made the decision to for the feasibility study of a new shelter. And so we started working with Branstetter Carroll on that project. We were fortunate to hire another ACO, which had been a long time coming. We we're continuing, to do process improvements. As Maggie said, implementing task lists so that people stayed on task, and we're completing the procedural things and the cleaning things and things that we needed to do. That included the review of the SOPs and the current ordinance, and those daily things, and doing the daily huddles. Another implementation thing that happened in June is during the previous few months, we'd noticed that, hey, our phones rang at the front desk, and then if Leah was not sitting there, they just went to voicemail. And so Maggie had gotten with our IT team and made a change that, hey, before they go to voicemail, let's let them roll over to my office phone in case I'm sitting in my office, so then I have an opportunity to answer those. And then let them go to voicemail. And then also, we're going to get a transcript of that voicemail sent to our email. So all of those things happened in June, and working with IT to make that happen as well. And that's something that, Maggie initiated after she started, because if somebody's not sitting at that desk, or they're helping another customer, we all know that there's people that walk in. If you're helping someone else, the probably thing, not the best customer service, is to say, hold on just a second, I need to get this phone. You're sitting in front of me, but I'm going to make you wait. I don't think any of us would like to be in that position when we walk into a doctor's office or an attorney's office or any other place of business. And so that was something that we changed. Now, I think we still have opportunity there. I'll be the first to say. But all of those things were happening in June. The other thing that I want to point out that happened in June is I was made aware. Our former director reached out to me and said, hey, I've got some concerns and stuff that I've been hearing, and I want to let you know about it, because we had a great relationship. And she said, I would be remiss if I didn't tell you what I'd heard. And I'm always, just like the fiscal court is always open ears to hear from our citizens, I felt no differently. And so I listened to those concerns and addressed them the very next day. In tandem of that, our HR team actually went and did individual interviews with every staff member, based on how are things going. They're fairly new. We have a new leader. We've got a lot of new kennel techs. How are things going? What concerns do you have? What issues do you have? What can we do better? What would you like to see? How are things going? Those were overwhelmingly positive. Things are, looking up. We're still learning things. Now, I think there were some challenges, because I think that we were keeping people pretty busy, and I think that there was a lot less downtime, and I think those things were communicated in those HR interviews as well. And so we continue to move forward, and we continue to do things. So in July, as I mentioned, that's when we started changing some of using Kennesaw, changing the cleaning process. That's also when we started having the conversation and implemented the MOA with the city of Richmond for sheltering their animals and the processes along with that. They had hired a animal control officer as opposed to using RPD, which is what they had done historically for several years. They'd used RPD to do animal control, but they'd actually hired an animal control officer. And so we entered into that MOA with them, in collaboration with them. And we're still continuing to work through those processes every day. We've had some great conversations and discussions with them about how logistically we can do that and do that better. And even simple things as, hey, when people call the shelter and it's in the city of Richmond, we need to make sure we're giving them the right phone number. Which phone number do you want us to use? Because we're using this number, but maybe somebody's not answering that number. So we're having those conversations. We had continue to have those conversations with the leadership at the city of Richmond, and how we coordinate even those intakes and things of that nature. And I have to say, I think that that is going to be a much improvement for everybody in Madison County when we're all on the same page as with that as well. So I'm grateful for that collaboration. August, we had some citizens come to us and hey, I've got some concerns about some things, and we sit down and meet with them. We sit down and hear those concerns, listen to them. And there are a couple of things that I want to give a shout out to Mary Pat Nixon that she brought up, and some questions, and some things that we implemented immediately. One of those was weighing animals on intake, and that sounds really simple, and it was a win-win, and that's what we always want. We had not done that. I'm going to say for 40 years we'd never weighed an animal on intake. Now, sometimes a rescue or someone who's looking for adoption, if you see that picture online, you can't tell if it's 3 pounds or 30. And so that's important. Well, our staff was spending a lot of time going back and forth. And so that was brought up to us. And when I went and met with the staff, I was like, is there a reason we shouldn't weigh on intake? And they're like, well, no, it's just not how we've had our processes. And I was like, is there a reason we can't weigh on intake? No. So I was like, well, we're making that change today, because it helped rescues. It helped our staff. That was a win-win. That and vaccinations on intake. I guess historically, under previous leadership, there had been a kind of a mindset that, hey, we're going to wait and see what happens with this animal. Is it healthy? Does the owner reclaim it? Does it go send to rescue? Some of those things before we vaccinated. And that's not best protocol. So Maggie was like, no, that's not best protocol. So that's another change that we made. I'm gonna say within 48 hours probably, and changed our procedures of doing that. That's how performance improvement works. That's how it's supposed to work. There's a concern, you address it, you vet it, you decide whether, hey, this is in the best interest of all parties, and you make that decision. During that time, we continue to have events and work on adoptions and meet with citizens and do all the things that we continue to need to do to make sure that we're doing the right things. And I share all that. I kind of go into all that detail for you all, because you all don't see the day-to-day. Very few people do see the day-to-day in and out of the animal shelter. And so all these little things add up to big successes. It's no different than preparing for a game. Sometimes you got to make little changes to get to big success. And so we've made a lot of little changes, and we've had a lot of hurdles. I mean, the first few months of this year was rough, and I'd be lying if I didn't say it was rough. I think we'd all agree on that. And so, but we kind of turn a corner at a certain point. And I think that's important for you all to know and see. I talk about a lot about performance improvement because, that's, our team will tell you that's something that I thrive on. That's something that I think is really important. But to be effective, you got to do 4 real important things. You got to set good goals. You got to communicate. You got to do the whole trust but verify, which is kind of what we live by. And then you got to determine if there is a problem, what's the cause of that problem. And that's how you develop solutions. I had the opportunity last week to hear someone speak, and they shared a statement that I've not been able to get off my mind. And Billy Ray knows what I'm going to say, so don't rat me out.
Go for it.
But this wise, I'm going to call it a wise and experienced person, said there are 2 kinds of people. There are those who want to make a point, and there's those who want to make a difference. If you want to get to know who the first is, look on the news. If you want to know who the latter is, look who's willing to come with solutions and work together to make things better. And I think when we think about our animal shelter, I think that's why I couldn't get it off my mind, is because, hey, we're not perfect. We're going to get better every single day. And that's what we encourage all of our teams to do. And the animal shelter is going to be part of that. But it's not about who squeaks the loudest. It's about doing the right thing. And I think that sometimes we lose sight of that. So moving on, I'll try to speed up, I promise. So we won't be here all day. Maybe.
Chris?
I'm hitting the button, but it's not happening. So 2 weeks ago, there were a lot of concerns and there was a lot of concerns and allegations that were kind of made, and those kind of centered when we went back, and I've watched last 2 weeks ago's fiscal court meeting probably 4 or 5 times. You all sound the same every time, I promise. But there were kind of 6 major categories when I kind of synthesized the information down. And this includes going back and looking at Facebook comments and shares and some of those things, even questions that we got from the media. Those kind of big categories were there's an increase in euthanasia. I'm going to say we're going to talk more about that, but that is absolutely not true. I have looked at those numbers more than any of us fairs would want to admit. That we are not working with rescues, also not true. That animal cases are not pursued. That is, again, not true. I have learned a little bit more about the judicial process, and sometimes I say I think I should have gone to law school for this job, but thankfully Brooke and Jenny always are there to provide us with great counsel and guidance. That there are environmental issues at the shelter. I will say there's absolutely opportunities. That shelter is 40 years old, and it was never designed to be a shelter. We've implemented some things there, as we've already talked about, but there are opportunities there. There were concerns around, I put it in the category of management, that we need more staff, we need more social media, we do not answer the phones, we need volunteers. I put all that kind of under that category. And we do have opportunities there. We'll dig into those a little bit more. And then that the finances are mismanaged, and there's a missing donation. And that is, we've talked about that, but that is absolutely not true. And I actually, thanks to Sarah, I actually brought the Edward Jones statement with me. I will not share that obviously on social media for privacy purposes, but that is absolutely, you all saw the details of that. So we'll kind of go into the first one, which is there's an increase in euthanasia numbers. That is absolutely not true. Actually, they have decreased very substantially, 51% from previous year if we annualize this year's numbers. I have lost a lot of sleep over this. My kids will tell you I've lost a lot of sleep over this because this has been very, very concerning to me. And I've taken it very personally. 89 of the 153 animals that have been euthanized thus far this year, 89 of those are from previous leadership in the first 2 months of the year, in January and February. That's 58% for math purposes. This was a concern that Maggie brought on, I'm going to say probably one of our first conversations about the numbers, and we kind of started looking at implementing some things, and that's that's concerning, you all, that last year that our number was that high, because there's a real big jump from 22 to 23, and you can see that if we stay on pace for this year, we're going to be the lowest we've been in 4 years. So if we annualize that, we would have 230. Is that 230 more than we want it to be? Absolutely. But it'll be the least that we've been in 4 years. I think when we really have, and I have to say kudos to Chris and Morris for looking at this, but also for our shelter team. We went and reviewed every single DEA record because I said there's no way that number can be correct. There is no way that that's the 23 number, because all I'm hearing is that, hey, our number's going up, our number's going up, our number's going up. But that is not true, and that is not the facts. And I think that is very important for the people of Madison County to know.
And that was under the previous director's leadership, correct?
Correct.
That also sent a letter last meeting?
Yes, sir. About that. That was their concern. And the signature page on every single one of those euthanasias has to be signed. It's a federal document for the DEA. And that letter that was sent is signed by the same person. So that's concerning to me.
Interesting.
But you can see, I mean, if I made Chris and Mo count this and go through this once, I bet I did it 500 times. And I counted the numbers on the sheet, and Bobby counted the numbers on the sheet, and Maggie counted the numbers on the sheet, because we thought, man, can this really be true? Because if somebody's going to make a case and an accusation, I sure wouldn't sign my name to it. So that is the very first. And so there's been some conversation about, oh, I went too far. There's been some conversation about time periods. And so what did we do? We go back and look, because we're data people, right? And so we go back and look. It's like, okay, well, if that's the case, I'm going to look at the exact same time period. I'm going to look from March 1st to August 31st last year, and I'm going to look from March 1st to August 31st this year. Same number of days, same time period, same weather patterns, and you can see what that looks like. Last year it was 263 for that time period, and this year it was 64. So I think that's important for the fiscal court to know. And I think that is a chart that I hope Ryan took a great picture of, because there's nothing more that you want to see in euthanasia numbers than that big steep decline. And that's what we aim for.
Maybe I can get a copy of that so I can send it up to Fox News.
Yeah. And I actually have to compliment Fox News. I usually am not in the, I'm usually not in the business of that, but of television stations, they and WBON actually at least contacted us for comment and for both sides of the story, as opposed to some of our other media partners who didn't think that was important. So I appreciate that too, and you always want all sides of the story told, and I think this tells you both sides of that story.
Jill, just for transparency's sake, was there any kind of outliner in that time period? I mean, we had tornadoes and floods during that time. Did we take in extra animals, or was there something that would cause that number to be? You know,
there's always, Brian, I've looked a lot at that, and there's always some ebbs and flows in that. We did last year have, there was a couple of outbreaks of disease in the shelter, and that caused some of those euthanasia numbers. Not double, but there were some of this relies on, and we'll talk a little bit this in one of the next slides, or a little bit longer, but you don't always know what you're getting in.
Yeah.
When you pick up strays, and if you get a litter of puppies, you don't know how many litters of puppies you're going to get in a time period. We've had a lot this year, more than the previous 2 years, but you don't know, and you can't, predict that. We did take in more owner surrenders last year, where somebody said, hey, I can't be a responsible pet owner. Will you, we did more of that last year. I would say that's the big thing that really looking at the data that I found is the biggest difference, that we've not taken as many owner surrenders this year in 2024 as we had previously. And I think that has been because of space and capacity and some of those things that we've made that choice, because we don't have to do that. We have to take in strays, but we don't have to take in owner surrenders. So good question though.
It's not to get sidetracked, but when we take in owner surrenders, is there a questionnaire or anything that they fill out to just kind of explain why? I mean, is there, so we have an idea of why people are surrendering animals?
Yeah, Maggie, you want to talk in more detail about that? You fill out those paperwork.
So anytime we get an owner surrender, with that form that they fill out on intake, where we take that dog's name, cat's weight, etc., we also list at the very top, they put their initials that they're signing it over to the Madison County Animal Shelter, and we assume responsibility for that animal. But right underneath that, they are required to state why they are surrendering this animal, and we get reasons from anything of, I inherited this animal when my cousin passed away, when my brother-in-law passed away, to I just can't do it anymore. So I just can't take care of them. I'm moving. I've become homeless. We've had some come in that they're seeking treatment for recovery from addictions and other things that may be in their lives, and we take those in for them. But those are reasons that we've had and things that are noted on those surrender forms for us.
Thank you.
Yep.
So, any other questions along that? One of the other complaints were missing animals because numbers were not sequential or missing. And so, this is one of these things, Chris could probably throw things at me most nights, because I want to make sure that we say this correctly and so that everyone understands. And the first part of that is the number that's assigned to an animal is an identifier. It's not a counter. And I say that specifically because when we do an intake form like Maggie was just talking about, it auto-generates that number. It auto-generates 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Well, if we have an animal control officer in the field and they bring up that browser to put in to do an intake as they pick up an animal, and somebody stops and asks them for directions, and they minimize their browser and they go and help the person and they bring it back up, it goes to the next number. So on our database, it'll say null. It's a burn number. The same process is used whether you're assigning that unique identifier to an employee for us. So sometimes we have that conversation, you all see in your court packet sometimes, if you have a new hire, that maybe there's a number in between. Well, it's the same purpose. It's the same systems that are used in retail. It's the same systems that are used for electronic medical records. And I kind of equate the two to be very similar. Actually, if we do an intake at the animal shelter, and if you do an admission at Baptist Health Richmond, you do an intake form, you establish that number, that visit number, and that follows you all the way through until you're discharged. It's kind of the same way at the animal shelter, and so our animal tracks is kind of like its own version of a electronic medical system, but it's not quite as comprehensive because we're not doing quite as comprehensive of things. But because those numbers are not sequential, does not mean that there's missing animals. It could mean that IT's doing tests, and now I've got them telling me like, yeah, I've got to do a test today, so there's going to be numbers in between. It could be because, like I said, there's somebody in the field. It could be because I'm showing a fiscal court member in our office what an intake form looks like, or I'm showing Judge Taylor what that looks like, and I bring it up. I'm not putting animal information in there, and then I close it down. Well, that's going to generate that number. So I think that's very important to know. I think, Tom, you actually asked kind of that question at court last time, like, how's that system work, or why would there be missing numbers? Does that help answer your question and understand that from a technology standpoint?
But you have record of the numbers that are missing, and
they say null beside
say
them.
null.
Yeah.
And so they're not missing, they're just they haven't been used.
It's what would be called a burn number in any other system.
That's why it's not a counter, it's an identifier.
Yeah. That was probably getting through that conversation. Chris and I was probably the best. I was like, that's how you phrase that. It's an identifier. It's not a counter. And we believe that some of these things, with that starting at intake and it doesn't finish until later. I mentioned earlier that previously we did intakes on paper and then transferred them to electronic. I think that's something that, and we put them in the tracking system after the fact. I think that definitely has contributed to this thought process. And honestly, that's something that we identified in this audit, and looking through and digging into this, we identified that. And I think that's good for us to know that, hey, this is how it was being done. We switched it here. You're gonna see a change. And so I think those all are things that kind of contribute to that thought process. Well, apparently my numbers kind of went away there, but I promise that they're there. One of the concerns was animals that we're not working with rescues. We are refusing to do that. I know you all can't see that, but I can look real close, I think, on my screen. So in 2019, we sent 105 animals to rescue. In 2022, and we intentionally left out 20 and 21 of this data because COVID was an entirely different animal, pun intended. I needed and we weren't doing intakes, we weren't doing animal control actively, so you all know what COVID looked like, and so those numbers definitely skew data. But in 2022, the number's 221. In 2023, it was 250. So far this year, and this is all through 8 months, so through August, so that we have the end of a time period, we have sent 151 animals that are considered special release. If you annualize that out, that would be 227 for the year. 53 of those, of that 151 that we have seen this year, 53 of those are owners reclaimed them. So that's what we want to happen, right? You lost your kitten, somebody brought it to the shelter, they came and got it, and they reclaimed it. So 53 are owners reclaimed, 98 went to rescue. So, and then that is 12 different rescues that we've used in this past year. So in 2024, we've used 12 different rescues that we've been able to match up with. Now, I'll be the first to say, is part of this last 2 weeks, I wasn't super familiar with how the rescue world works and what that looks like, and I've learned a lot. Thanks to some citizens, thanks to our team who has helped explain that and what that kind of process looks like. I think there's a lot of people who do rescue work, and I think that is a great passion for a lot of people. I think that we also know that I didn't realize, and this was my own shortcoming, I'll say, I didn't realize that rescues, you know, they adopted animals, but I didn't know that they made people pay for them. And that has been a learning experience for me, is that, hey, rescues do great work, and they transport animals all over the country to where there's a desire for those, and I think that's a great thing. And then they adopt those out to people in those communities who may want that particular breed or that particular animal. So that was a fun fact, I guess.
What were some of the numbers that was told to me in a briefing of how much they charge? Like there's several of there's a rescue out of Rhode Island or somewhere, right? Or upper.
Yeah, so we've got rescues.
East Coast.
We've got, in the Northeast, they have a lot different animal control laws, and so animals are much more difficult to get, I guess I'll say, and there's a lot more things that go along with that. And so if you look, I've kind of looked at some of the rescues, I mean, locally or in the Northeast, particular ones, they'll range anywhere from $250 to $750 that they will sell the animal, and sometimes animals that we've given to that rescue, they will sell for.
And sometimes what I've noticed too, just in listening to some of those conversations, is it can get competitive between rescues.
Yeah, that's what I didn't know. Those are the things I didn't know.
Because obviously there's money to be made, right?
Yeah.
You know, and you when me, you know, somebody that's not in that or don't understand that, you know, I think all rescue, that's a good thing, you know, and it's mission driven, it's volunteer. But then you find out that some of that there's maybe even more reasons through what you could sell one of those animals for that you're paying little at an animal shelter for to then resell it.
And actually, we don't charge our rescues.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, rescue work is great work, and I am grateful and I think appreciative that there's people who do that. And I think that's something we will continue to work alongside them.
I'm thankful for rescues.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's important. You know, I had a mentor once that always used to use the phrase, with no margin, there's no mission. And I think that is probably pretty accurate for rescues too. That's how they are able to continue to do what they do, is by charging fees for animals. So, but that's been, I guess, a surprise. I didn't know how that works. So we all get better every day because we learn more things. So that was my learning. I'm not sure what happened to my numbers here, but another concern that was brought forward is that animals are just dying in the shelter, and so this is also something that was very concerning. I mean, that's a pretty big statement, that animals are just so we looked back at, hey, and we went and looked at every animal this year and the cause of death and what that looks like. Sorry you can't read that very well, but for 2024, that is 33 that have passed away in shelter. For 2023, that was 27, and for 2022, it was 44. If you annualize 2024, that number would be 50. And kind of, you can see below, kind of a little bit of breakdown. So when we really dove into, okay, if we're having in-shelter deaths, why? That goes back to the root cause. Why is this happening? 19 of those animals that were in-shelter deaths were 8 weeks or less. They're puppies that were vulnerable, high risk, and very sick. That's 58%. 2 of those were seniors, very aged animals that were taken in with some health issues. 1 was brought in very severely injured, and despite vet care and medical care, did not make it. And then there were 11 that were puppies, meaning they were between 8 weeks and 1 year. So they were still high risk and vulnerable. I talked to a local vet this weekend, and you know, they kind of explained to me a little bit the risk of puppies and what that looks like until all sets of vaccinations are given, all, you know, those sorts of things, and exposure to other animals and those sorts of things. And so that kind of paints a little bit of that picture. I think Magistrate Combs, you asked about, you know, different intake levels and that sort of stuff. One thing that I did do is go back and look over the last 2 years, because I was like, man, 19 puppies are, like, that's kind of a lot. Like, how many have we got in the previous 2 years? And so if you look at that, in 2023, we only took in those 8 weeks or less, we only took in 12. And then the year before, we took in 13. So obviously, you've got a little bit of an increase there, so that risk increases as well.
So shelter's not an ideal place for a puppy. I mean, all of us that raise dogs know that you know, there's a period of time that you don't want them around other dogs until they get through their vaccination status. But, you know, when you only have an option to put them in with other animals, I mean, you don't have that choice, that luxury. And so it's not an ideal place to bring, you know, and I understand that sometimes you have to do it, but it's just not an ideal place for puppies.
You know, one of the things that I kind of reflected back on this with this puppy, and I grew up, I've told you all, on a farm, and, you know, had dogs and raised puppies and different things. And I remember being a small kid, and my dog had a litter of puppies, and we started with 12, but we didn't end up with 12. And I remember how heartbreaking as a kid that was. And my dad actually reminded me this over the weekend. And he said, well, remember when that happened, you know, sometimes, you know, that happens. You have a big litter and there's a run, or there's different things that go along with that. And I kind of forgotten about that. I kind of, you know, get pretty focused on, oh my gosh, this number's bad. But sometimes you have to, again, bring the reality back to things. So, again, it's not true that animals are just laying there dying, and, you know, we have looked back at every one of those animals and every one of those in-shelter deaths, and the documentation that goes along with it, even including the medical and vet care that may have also gone along with it.
Jill, would that be one of the things that we would want to look at in a new shelter, is separation?
I think there's a lot of things, Magistrate Lockmuir, that we want to look at in a new shelter, but absolutely. And I think that having some of the early conversations that Judge Taylor and I've had with the architectural team, who has actually done shelters in other places in the state, is having some specific kennel space for puppies. You know, often you put the litter together. What does that look like? What do small kennel spaces look like? Having different sized kennel spaces. Right now, we pretty much have the same setup for all, but making sure that those areas are kind of identified specifically for that. And those are always things that are just going to help. I think one of the things that also that's part of that is, you know, right now we have 3 buildings, I guess technically 4, but we have sheltering different buildings. And so you obviously bring in an animal into like the stray hold area, and they kind of move through the process a little bit. And that stray hold building and what is there to ensure that there's no disease spread and those sorts of things. Obviously, it's not super efficient for our staff either. And so I think being able to reconfigure the shelter with some of those things in mind absolutely is something we would want to pursue. We're really shifting gears here, but one of the next concern was the lack of Facebook engagement. We can do better. Absolutely, we can do better. Just a little snapshot. One fairly significant change that we've made earlier this year, in March of this year, is, oftentimes we think about Facebook engagement and we think, what that looks like, and we post and we post and we post, but there's some strategy around this, and there's strategy around over posting, and there's strategy around posting at the right times with the right information. And that's not always something we've done super well in all areas of county government. We have been able to continue to improve that on both the shelter. I personally have gotten a little bit more involved in the Facebook page. We have also, I kind of mentioned earlier, this is a classic kind of situation of, hey, you can do that, or you can answer the phone, or you can do an adoption. Well, sometimes their social media has kind of fallen off, and I'll be the first to say we've had some of the same experiences with the county pages where we are doing great, and then we all get busy, and they're like, oh, by the way. And so because of that, we've been working, had a little bit new strategy lately, and it's been working well, and having some outside help working with us on some of those things and what those things look like and being strategic. Facebook is all driven off of an algorithm of what you see and when you see it and all of those things. And so making sure that we're doing things so that people do see it, number one. And just because you don't see it doesn't mean it's not there, does it, Judge Taylor? We have this conversation all the time, and he will say, did you see that? And I'm like, no, and then I look it up and it's there. So, but we can absolutely do better in this area. And I think we can do it. We can be more strategic. Not only can we do more, but we can be more strategic as well.
I think a lot of that too, Jill, is, you can post something, but if people aren't sharing it, and spreading it, far and wide, it's sometimes it's hard to see. So those that have concerns about, Facebook engagement, we encourage you to share the things that we do have.
Yeah.
And try to get those available to people, in your groups or I know there's a lot of groups throughout Facebook that are, you have to be a part of to post and those things, and we can't do that in your group. But if you want to share those things, then we encourage you to do that.
Absolutely, that's an excellent point.
And also it speaks to, with the changes in our social media initiative, we've been more intentional with what we're posting. If you notice on our animal shelter page now, we have posts of how to care for your new cat, how to care for your new dog. So those have been a priority for us, is getting those educational materials ready so that we can put those on our Facebook page. So those posts are intentional, effective, and communicative to our community. So it's not just another, hey, this is Fido, look how cute he is. It's a purposeful post that will actually have an impact on top of our animal spotlights or if we have events. So it's a good mix for us now.
And one of the complaints that was shared with me, I don't think it was in fiscal court, but was that, hey, we're not seeing enough reunited posts, or we're not seeing enough, I adopted posts. And, we're at the mercy sometimes of citizens. Not everybody likes to have their photo taken. Not everybody likes to be on Facebook. I can see some people in this room that I'm not sure are on Facebook. And so I think that, those are things that we're always going to be good stewards to our people. And if somebody's like, no, I'd rather not do that, then we're never going to force that.
Social media has also become a place to beat people down, not build people up. And so I would encourage our citizens, I would encourage our staff, when we're doing these positive posts and people start, commenting and criticizing and, spreading lies or untruthful things, then, I would encourage other citizens to build our staff up and our shelter up. And and sort of fight back and push back a little bit on some of those comments?
You know, I hadn't really decided if I was going to say this or not, but you opened the door for me, so I guess I have to. I think one of the things that has been so hard this past 2 weeks and has been incredibly disappointing. Disappointing for a lot of reasons, but I have been incredibly disappointed about how our shelter staff has been treated. And that goes far and wide. I think you have people who have chosen to do something. Are we perfect? No. But if they've chosen something, not for the glory, not to get on TV, not to get accolades, because it's something they're passionate about. And there are people that have called our office, that have sent us messages, that have never been to our shelter. They have never met one member of our team. They have not been in our shelter for 10 years. I even had one conversation with someone who had only ever been to Madison County once. Another conversation with a community person who was holding on to something that had occurred 10 years ago, maybe greater than 10 years ago, but at least 10 years ago, she said. And she said, well, I had this happen to me 10 years ago. And so I shared and I put this on Facebook because of that experience. And I think that's very unfair. I think it's very unfair.
But didn't say that in the post, though. Didn't say 10 years ago.
And
I mean, there was another post that was talking about 15 years ago. Well, none of us were even here 15 years ago, 10
And
years
I think
ago.
that's really sad. I think it's really also very sad that it has become a way to attack people personally without any facts. And I go back to, if we want to make it better, we got to work together to do that. And throwing darts is never the answer.
I mean, some people took the time out to send emails to say we ought to be euthanized.
Yeah, I mean, our
That
staff
our staff and elected officials should be euthanized. Yeah.
And I think that's scary. I think the world that we live in is scary. And so our staff has put up with a lot over the last couple of weeks. And as you can see, some of it is just absolute false. And so I think that's very hurtful. And it's very disappointing, I should say. But moving on. Another concern was the complaint was we're not answering the phones. Absolutely. We can do better. We're not doing great at it. We need improvement. We made a change. Maggie made a change on the phone system in June. We have set an expectation. Judge Taylor, I think, mentioned it in court 2 weeks ago. We have reconfirmed this with our staff on a couple of occasions that we've set an expectation of a 24-hour callback. And that's what we've talked about, some other options. One of the things that in analyzing this call data over the course of the last 90 days, we've realized that, hey, sometimes we get a call and we take care of it, and we're like, hey, we're gonna put it in the system to send an animal control officer out. Well, we don't ever call the person back and say, oh, we put that in the log for the animal control officer to come visit. And that's not best practice. We've talked about, hey, do we send a text saying, hey, we got your message, we'll have an animal control officer come that way. So I think there's work to be done there. I think that we are making improvements and working on that every single day. But absolutely, in that period of time, we got 3,722 inbound calls, and 52% of them were answered by voicemail.
Jill, does that period cover like 24 hours a day, even when the shelter? Okay.
Yeah. And so we've got that more specifically broken down. You can see the holiday calls. We got 73 calls on a day the shelter was closed because of the holiday. This is business hours. We have some that are disconnected. That means that they didn't wait for, help me Chris, they didn't wait for like somebody to actually pick up. We also, and it was really hard, we kind of tried to say, hey, how many did we call back? We looked at the call logs and how many did we call back? And that was really difficult to marry those up, because if we called that number back 3 times, we may have had 1 inbound and 3 outbound, or vice versa. So we didn't find a real data-driven way to be able to do that we felt like was accurate, but we can do better. I think that's the end of that, and we will do better. I think that is the ultimate deciding factor. Is we agree with you that we've got to do better.
Jill, is there a, when you call the shelter, does it go through like a menu? Thank you. That says, select one if it's this or that or that. Is there any way that we could, to be able to, drive this down to see how we're communicating with the public, to be able to do that? Because there may be just calls that are, maybe it's a wrong number or
So
whatever it is.
we actually learned during this process and through this, after the last fiscal court meeting, we actually learned a lot about in looking at, hey, here's a number. We can't find that on our missed calls anywhere. We can't, this number is not showing up. So where are they calling? And so through that process and, kind of talking through it with some citizens, they're like, well, that's not the number I'm calling. We had one particular individual who had been calling the Richmond Codes office for an answer, and they thought they were calling the shelter. And so we had a meeting last Friday with actually the animal control officers and stuff for the city of Richmond, as well as with the chief of police and about that. And they were getting, their process had been to call the main Richmond number, and then the main Richmond number was transferring to Codes, and then Codes was transferring, and so we kind of blew up that whole process. And so now our animal shelter is directing, if somebody calls in the city limits, they're giving them the direct number to the direct Codes dispatcher, so they don't go directly to them, so they're not going through the Richmond process as well as through our process. So I think that there's some logistical changes, to your point, that we've uncovered through this that probably have not been helping the matter. Now, I think we can do things better, but you're right. If we kind of drill down and get to what do they really want to do, then we can help them get there. Chris, I don't know if you want to add.
Nope. Well, that's a good answer. I think there's two sides of that. A lot of people don't want to call and get an auto attendant. They want to talk to a human. So that's what was taken into consideration here, is that phone rings, they want to talk to somebody. And if Leah can't answer it, Maggie's already instituted, now it's rolling upstairs to be answered. And if they can't get it, it's going to voicemail. Maybe the better caveat is before you send it to voicemail, maybe you can go to an auto attendant and ask some questions to get them, hey, were you looking for the city of Richmond or whatever it may be, right? We can work through that stuff. We can make it do whatever it needs to do to best serve the citizens. And
We're calling for directions and operation hours.
Yep.
That's a ton of calls that we got that we kill in the phone tree, so it doesn't come in and we don't have to. We don't
certainly room for improvement, and then we can
You've
work
gone through this too.
Yeah.
I think under a perfect world, it'd be one thing, but you're understaffed most of the time. So anything that you can do to provide efficiency for the shelter and give the citizen the opportunity to leave a message is probably a good thing, not a bad thing. They should understand that there's things to do during the day.
Yeah, and I think Brian and Kenny bring a great point, and we do that in Kenny's office as well. It brings up an auto attendant, and it does weed out a lot of and that'd be good. We'll let it ring upstairs, then it can go to an auto attendant and say, hey, here's our business hours, here's what you would do if you're surrendering an animal, because that's what Facebook messages usually are.
Well, we did it 9 years ago in the judge's office. I mean,
Yep.
we were answering all the court calls
It is
because
still there
judge
today.
executive people were calling, what time is my court date, or what time am I supposed to be in court? And so, yeah.
So I think that's something definitely we add to the action plan. Another concern that was brought up was about adoption events that haven't taken place or aren't taking place. I will say the same thing. It's not true that they're not taking place, but we can always do more. And that comes, obviously at a cost too. Just to kind of a little recap, in 2022, there are the events that took place in 2023. We generally do 4 to 5 events a year, I would say is what we've traditionally done. This year, that's been a little different. We did something new this year that was a kind of a stretch and a push, and I'm pretty sure our previous director thought I was somewhat crazy when I asked them to see if we would take dogs on dates for single people on Valentine's Day, but I thought it was cute. We did that. We ended up adopting a couple of animals out as a result of that. We did our adoption potty, as you all will remember, at the Richmond Mall earlier this year. We had an event in August at Tractor Supply. We had an event actually on Sunday in collaboration with EKU Athletics in the soccer game, and I didn't update this, but we did do 2 adoptions as a result of that event. We've got a couple of events already planned in the planning process, and creative and graphics and stuff will probably be out within the next week or so for those at the end of this year. So, our goal is to have some kind of promotion or an event about every month. All of those probably won't be huge adoption fairs, and sometimes those are not the most beneficial. Sometimes the small things are what yields the most results. So that's something we can continue to do, but I think the fact that they're not happening is not true. One of the things that was brought up, and this is something we've looked at long and hard, at least ever since I've been here, and it was hours of operation. And this is something we continue to evaluate every single year, every single, I would say, 4 or 5 times a year. One is, Saturday hours. This is something that the community has asked for. It's something we implemented back in 2022 to see what that looked like. And I will say, it was not as fruitful as what we'd hoped. We can pull the data and tell how many people checked in, how many adoptions we did, how many maybe was a owner claim, or how many was even something that went out to rescue. And it was, those numbers are not quite, there's a lot of days our staff sat there and people didn't come see them. And I think that, that's a decision we always have to make of what's in the best interest of the organization, of making sure that we're doing things that are fruitful and making sure that we're using the limited funds that we have as wisely as possible. And so it's something we'll continue to evaluate. We've had some conversations recently about looking at hours of extending the day versus Saturday hours. I think there's a lot of times you get busy on Saturdays, you got a lot of stuff going on, and the intentions are like, it sounds really good, I'm going to come on a Saturday, but we got to look at time of hour, day of week, and when people are actually coming that are supporting the shelter. Went the wrong way. Finally, one of the big concerns, that we heard from citizens is about the lack of a volunteer program. That's absolutely true. We don't have and have never had a robust volunteer program. That's been for a number of reasons. It is not because we're not appreciative of people who have a willingness to help and want to help. Mostly that's because we've not had a good structure in place, and volunteers that want to follow the policies and protocols, that want to waive their liability. The fiscal court will probably remember, we've had litigation around an issue at the shelter where somebody was injured. So there's major implications around that as well. And so we had this conversation with our legal counsel and making sure that we do all the things to protect the best interests of the county. And we've always encouraged our leadership to make that decision and make that decision on the right time and when it works for them and it properly supports the operations of the shelter and assists them with what their needs are. And I think that is important. I think that's an important part of leadership sometimes too, is understanding, getting your arms wrapped around best practices before you start training and telling other people how to do those things. And I think that is something that all of our leaders in the past have taken some time to do, of making sure they have a feel of what they need, how they volunteers can best support, but also a willingness to do things up to the fiscal court standards. So I think that's absolutely a true fact that we do not have a strong volunteer program. We had some challenges with volunteers in the past, especially when we were having our inmate program. There is some concerns there as well, and so something that we can and will continue to explore with the fiscal court's support, obviously.
I think sometimes though the citizens think, well, we don't have a volunteer program. It's because there's bad things going on. Nobody wants them to be there, right? And it's not the case at all. It's logistical. It's being short-staffed. It's having to train. It's, you know, I mean, there's a lot of other things, liability to your point. So
Absolutely, and I think that it is definitely not a nature of, hey, we don't want you there. It's a, hey, we've got to make sure we can utilize you effectively so that you are effectively supporting the shelter, and using your time that you're volunteering effectively. Nobody wants to go to volunteer. They don't give you anything to do. You just sit there, and I think that is some of what has made our teams hesitant in the past.
I think when you're short-staffed as it is, and you've got folks that's not been there very long, they're still learning the job. It makes it difficult to bring someone else. I know from a manufacturing experience, the person that shows up on day one, they don't know the history. They don't know the ins and outs, and so it's a difficult job to train people, and it takes time. And so you're taking time away from your normal duties to help bring people up to where they need to be. And to the judge's point, I mean, when you got liability issues, most shelters, the humane societies, those people, they require people to have training when they come in, because at the end of the day, the lives and the care of the animals is what's important. It's not so that we can take a Facebook picture and say that we helped today, and that's great, and we want that, but it's these animals need the right treatment and people with the right training to come in to be able to work with them, and that's not for everybody. And this, we don't want it to be a daycare where people are just dropping off people that just got extra time. That's not the point of it. The end goal is to take care of these animals.
I think that's what a lot of people's perceptions, though, too, that we've learned in this is from 10, 15 years ago. Well, 10, 15 years ago, Tom, I had hair.
Saw that picture.
Yeah, things change, right? I mean, and things can change for the good. Things can change for the bad, but things can change. I want to say, since I've been here, I know that things have changed for the good at our animal shelter, so.
It's kind of interesting that you brought that up. So in looking and researching and stuff and learning, there was a study done by the University of Kentucky in 2016. It's out there you can Google it. It's out there on the web. But it was done to look at animal shelters across the state of Kentucky and identify ones that are great, ones that are really bad, and those that are in between. This was from 2016. And so Madison County was identified as the middle. I think it's yellow on the map or whatever. We're in between. We weren't in the top 15, but we weren't in the bottom. We were in the middle. And so it lists, if you're in the middle, like, hey, what are your improvement areas? And I got kind of excited because some of the things that it said for the opportunities in 2016, I'm like, oh, we do that now, check. We do that now, check. One of them was about record keeping. And I think that we transitioned to electronic record keeping in 2019. And so some of those things that, to your point, that may have been true 10 years ago or even 5 years ago are not true today. And so when you looked at that report and that study and where you fell, we weren't the worst of the worst then, and then we've gotten better. So that's generally encouraging. And I think that is a good kind of way to wrap up a little bit, is where are we going from here, and how are we successful? We're going to continue to mentor and train staff and understand expectations and hold them accountable. I think, if you looked at number one, what's that going to look like? Someone said this online, and I will repeat it. We can do better, Madison County, and yes, we can. We can always do better. We can accept the truth even when we don't like it. I didn't like that we missed that many phone calls. I promise you I didn't. But we could wait for the answer before we make up our own. And I think that is something that we can all do better. We're going to continue to work with experts. We're going to continue to lean and utilize the trained professionals in this community. We have some amazing vet partners that work with us and our team every single day, and we're appreciative of them, and we take their guidance a lot. And there's a lot of qualified people out there that have training, knowledge, and skills to support us and are willing to do so. I think that is also incredibly important. We're going to continue to work on the plan for the future and see what that looks like. We have challenges in our current facility. We have a septic system. We have an aging infrastructure. We have old pipes and we have old concrete, and we have some of those things that are old, and that's why we want to move forward, because for better outcomes. And then we're going to continue to monitor this, and we're going to continue to listen to people. We're going to continue to listen to our community. When they come to us with great ideas, we're going to continue to be, our ears are going to continue to be open, because I think that's how we do our job best. And we're going to trust our team to deliver results and monitor the success and outcomes to ensure that our expectations are being met. And I said it earlier, there's a lot about you trust your people and you verify. And I think that this has been a very good exercise for us in enabling us to get to the bottom of some of the concerns that the community has brought forward, and then respectfully have conversations about what actually is happening, how it's happening, and how we can do better. So, questions?
I want to just ask you, what do we say all the time of our goal of our animal shelter is? What do we always say in the office? And we've said it for a long time to our department heads. What was our ultimate goal? We're
going to find a great, loving home and outcome as quickly as we can for the animals that are brought to our shelter. Whether that is through a owner claiming it, which is always generally the favorite, whether that's through adoption, whether that's through working with a rescue, but that's our goal. Yeah. And we're going to continue to work towards that. And
I hope you all see here today that we had meetings with some folks that from the past that we're going to own it when we are not doing things that we can do better. We're going to always admit it. It's going to be the truth. And I hope you see here today that some of these things were true, and we appreciate I'll say the constructive criticism to make us better. I'm proud of our team, proud of what all we've gone through this past week. I think those types of things just make us stronger. But I hope you also see here that we do have a wonderful staff. We're not putting blinders on when it comes to the animal shelter. Some of those comments we heard about how awful it smells out there. The Wednesday after last court, I wanted to go out and just lift up our team, build our team up, because I felt like that they were probably pretty down in the dumps with what all was going on, especially when we got emails about they should be euthanized, So I went out there that morning, and I couldn't believe how good it smelled. I'll be the first to admit, the smell in the past inside the shelter has not always been the most pleasant, but I could not believe it. I thought, man, this is a different place. It's because of Maggie's leadership and the Kennesaw and the Fabuloso or Fabuloso, yeah. So we are making strides to be better. So.
And I think we've had that comment from several other people who've interacted with the shelter a lot over the years, and I'll say Landry is one of the people who made that comment when I was meeting with her the other day. She said, man, when I went there like 6 months ago, I thought I was going to have to hold my breath 9 months ago. And she's like, I didn't even really notice this time. And so when you hear that from people who have comparison, I think that's always a good thing to hear.
But I think it goes back to some people are commenting on things things that happened years ago. It was their memory, you know, and when they articulate that on Facebook, they don't always articulate that was 10 years ago, that was 15 years ago, that was 6 months ago, and so a lot of people, I think, read it in the moment. Members of the court, do y'all have anything? I know this has been a long presentation, but I felt like that it was really worthwhile, so that the truth and the facts can be sort of laid out there.
I want to make sure to thank the staff for all their hard work. I know we're not anywhere close to where we want to be, but we're making progress to where we want to be. And obviously a new shelter, being in the subject matter is good for the shelter, good for Madison County. And just keep in mind, Maggie, I don't really know you yet, but I like what I'm hearing about you. There's always going to be criticism. People love social media because they can say anything they want to and not be responsible for it. Like I said last time when I was speaking, when the group came in here, that's what I want to see. If there's individuals that have facts and have concerns, then come to court. Come to court. That makes a heck of a difference. This court, at least from my perspective, is going to do what's necessary to make Madison County better each and every day. And if we're not up here serving that motto, then we ought not to be up here in the first place.
Anyone else? Well,
I just want to echo, I guess, what Steve has said to some degree. You know, Maggie, I apologize for not being a frequent flyer at the animal shelter. You know, government, especially county government, it's been my experience over the last 10 years that the squeaky wheel is the one that gets the grease. Unfortunately, the wheel is always squeaking at the animal shelter, but there's not enough grease to go around. We appreciate you. We appreciate you, the staff, everything that you all have done down there to make it better. And, you know, you can see that. I can see that in the report today. Jill, thank you for the time and the thoroughness of going through and digging all that out, because that's a lot of work. And I know you have other things to do, but I appreciate you all doing the research and bringing that to us and showing it to us. You know, I'll tell you that that also in my 10 years, I've learned that, and I'm not just going to pick on Facebook, social media is a double-edged sword. Yes, it can be good when you're patting yourself on the back, but it's like the judge said earlier, it's also a demon when faceless comments come out from people who will not come through that door and come up here to your face and say anything to you. You know, so take that for what it's worth. But the things that you've done down there, you know, I'm not sure about our volunteer program. You know, there's issues there. You know, we've tried inmates, we've tried different things down there. Maybe we always have to keep looking. It's always going to be better. I don't care what your process is. I don't care what you do. And this is across the board and everything. If you're not looking to make things better, you're going backwards, because it can always be better. I don't care what it is. So we appreciate everything that you do. Appreciate the new ideas that you bring down there every single day. And don't get stagnated on that. You know, look for the bright side of it. The sun comes up every single morning, goes down every single night. So you just keep doing the things that you do the best down there, and overall, in time, it'll get better. And we appreciate you. Thank you.
Judge, I forgot one thing real quick. And I mentioned this to you previously, day before yesterday or whenever. I am going to meet with some people and sit down and see what kind of ideas and thoughts they have. If all that it's going to be is a bitch session, then I'm probably not going to have very many meetings. But I've already got 2 meetings set up, and I'm doing that to gain more education on my part and to gain more data and knowledge from people that do care about our animal shelter and care about animals. And anything that I feel like is worthy, I'm going to bring back to the court for our consideration.
No, I appreciate that. You know, we want to partner with folks that want to be part of solutions and want to be partners in, you know, fixing issues. What we don't want to be partners with is anybody that's attacking us or accusing without any kind of facts or making up their own story. And so, you know, I look forward to those that want to make it better. We get up every day. Our team, we strive. Our department head meetings, many of the department heads are here today. We get up every day to try to make our county better and to make our processes better and more efficient. I mean, so we're going to continue that. It doesn't matter if it's the animal shelter or the road department or emergency management or fire department, finance, doesn't matter. And so, but I appreciate you all. If there's no more, I think a
I'm sorry, that's
presentation
pretty
for
lo- I'm pretty sure
over
that was a
an
lot.
hour here is good. So we'll move on to our next agenda item if that's pleasing with the group. Ma'am, not right now. Public comment will come at the end of the fiscal court meeting. This was a presentation to the fiscal court. No, that's okay. No worries. No worries. I'm glad you're here. So,
Here too.
next is first reading of ordinance 2024-15. This is an update land development and subdivision regulations.
Sorry. This is, as Judge said, amendment to ordinance 2023-13, an ordinance of the Madison County Fiscal Court, Kentucky, amending ordinance 2023-13, the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations regarding allowed uses. Whereas the Commonwealth of Kentucky passed legislation in 2023 legalizing the use of medical cannabis and establishing a framework for state licensure of cannabis businesses such as dispensaries, cultivators, processors, producers, and safety compliance facilities. And whereas the city of Richmond and the city of Brea have already passed similar ordinances to regulate the above mentioned types of businesses. And whereas Madison County wishes to be consistent with other government entities within the county and does believe the need exists for Madison County land development and subdivision regulations to address these types of businesses within the county. Whereas the Madison County Planning Commission has adopted the following definitions for various cannabis businesses as provided by the Cabinet for Health and Family Services, Office of Medical Cannabis, and consistent with applicable Kentucky revised statutes and Kentucky administrative regulations thereunder. Cannabis cultivator is a business that is licensed in compliance with KRS 218B to engage in planting, raising, harvesting, trimming, and curing raw plant material in an indoor facility. Cannabis processor is a business that is licensed in compliance with KRS 218B to engage in processing and packaging raw plant material into usable product formats. Current state law does not allow these products to be smokable. Cannabis producer is a business that is licensed in compliance with KRS 218B to engage in growing and processing raw plant material. Cannabis Safety Compliance Facility is a business that is licensed in compliance with KRS 218B to engage in contamination and purity testing. And Cannabis Dispensary is a business that is licensed in compliance with KRS 218B to engage in purchasing and selling finished products to medical cannabis cardholders. Whereas the Madison County Planning Commission held a public hearing on Tuesday, August 20th, 2024, to consider the said amendment to the regulations. After discussion of same, the Commission found that making cannabis business as defined herein a conditional use in certain appropriate zones and permitted use in certain appropriate zones when developed with a proper site development plan. And whereas the Commission voted to recommend Madison County Fiscal Court that the text of Article 3, the zoning districts and use regulations, which is Section 3.06, under allowed uses of the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations, be amended to make the various zones herein defined cannabis businesses as a conditional use in the following subdistricts and zones. Cannabis cultivator is UC7 and UC4. Cannabis processor, UC7 and UC4. Cannabis producer, UC7, UC4. Cannabis safety compliance facility, UC4. Cannabis dispensary, UC4. Whereas the Commission voted to recommend the Madison County Fiscal Court text Article 3, Zoning Districts and Use Regulations, Section 3.06, Allowed Uses of the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations, be amended to make the various herein defined cannabis businesses a permitted use in the following subdistricts and zones. Cannabis cultivator, UC5, cannabis processor, UC5, and cannabis producer, UC5. Now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the Fiscal Court of Madison County, Commonwealth of Kentucky, that the findings of the Madison County Planning Commission and hereby adopted, and that text, Article 3, Zoning Districts and Use Regulations, Section 3.06, Allowed Uses of the Madison County Land Development Subdivision Regulations, be changed to make the various herein defined cannabis businesses a conditional use in the following subdistricts and zones. Cannabis cultivator, UC7, UC4. Cannabis processor, UC7, UC4. Cannabis safety compliance facility, UC4. Cannabis dispensary, UC4. Whereas the commission voted to recommend the Madison County Fiscal Court text of Article 3, zoning districts and use regulations 3.06, allowed uses of the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations be changed to the various herein defined cannabis businesses a permitted use in the following subdistricts: cannabis cultivator, UC5, cannabis processor, UC5, cannabis producer, UC5. Further, the text of the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations, Article 7, 7.02, shall be amended to add these definitions. Those are the same definitions that we have said previously. The Madison County Office of Planning and Development shall make the appropriate textual changes to the Madison County Land Development and Subdivision Regulations to effect this change. The county clerk shall cause this ordinance to be published in accordance with the Kentucky Revised Statute. This ordinance shall become effective on the date of the second reading and adoption. You will see also the attachment from the Madison County Planning Commission.
Thank you, Jill. Appreciate it. Members of the court, y'all have heard first reading of ordinance 2024-15.
You should have had Chris read it.
I know.
Do I have a motion and a second to approve first reading of ordinance 2024-15?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second for first reading. Any discussion at this time?
Yes, so I do have some discussion. So I'm personally, Tom Botkin, this is Tom Botkin personally, not Magistrate Botkin. I'm not for cannabis anything, simply because it opens up a bunch of doors that we don't want to go down. So that's my personal opinion. However, as a representative of 20,000+ people, if it helps one of those people, it's controlled properly, it's prescribed by the a physician who controls that. If you're a cancer patient, that's the only thing that brings you peace. I don't think I'm going to stand in the way of that. Where will it go? I don't know. Is it going to open the door for who knows what? Probably, but that's where we're at today.
So I've got several, I guess, questions and concerns. If we approve this ordinance, can we not go back and ban any one of these definitions as far as dispensary?
Absolutely, if that's the pleasure of the court. So just remember, this is a first reading, and this is an ordinance, and we have to act as a fiscal court from the legislature action back last session. So understand that.
Yeah.
All this is what it says. It's a first reading. All we're doing today is voting to have a first reading, and to move on to a second reading, which will be advertised, which will allow for public comment and that kind of thing. It'll allow you all, as members of the court, to go vet this ordinance. You all will be able to understand it better, and maybe if you have some questions about some of the zonings and what some of those things mean, you'll have time to go to Bert and ask those questions between now and the next fiscal court meeting, which would be the second reading.
I would also point people to the website for the Kentucky Department of Medical Cannabis. Has a lot of good information on there. So in between those two readings, if any members of the public want to become more educated about that, that's a good resource.
And this is our ordinance. I mean, this is your ordinance right here that we can amend at any time. This is an amendment, is what this is, to our land use regs.
So we can amend it after the first reading and before the second reading?
Now, you won't be able to substantially change this.
I guess that's my concern.
This language, if there's a grammar change or something like that, that's okay. But from the time we advertise this for the second reading, it can't have substantial change. If not, we just have to have another first reading. Now, if there's going to be substantial change, and we've had this happen before, if we know prior to advertising for the second reading that there's going to be substantial change, then we go ahead and have the substantial change. We sort of cancel this ordinance, and we would create a new ordinance with a new number that then would have the first reading, that then would go on to the second reading.
Okay.
But if this is going to be the language of this, it goes to second reading, then at that point you would vote on it, yes or no. If no, then this doesn't exist, right?
Right. Yeah, I guess, one of the concerns like I have, I think that the state has gotten the cart in front of the horse on this issue. One of the concerns I have is the dispensary part of it. I can't understand why a Schedule I drug is not dispensed through a pharmacy. And so I don't think they put the appropriate rails on this, myself. I think that it should, if you get a doctor's prescription for cannabis, which I support, I'm not against someone getting that prescription for their need. But I do have a concern about the dispensary part of it, and I think it should be through a pharmacy. And, you know, we're fighting the drug epidemic every court meeting, through our jail, through everything that we do. And we're going to have more on our court docket today about, you know, the ASAP money. And that's fighting drug epidemic in our community. So I think that, you know, it speaks volumes that our 4 representatives voted no on Senate Bill 47. They saw something in it they didn't like. And so, you know, I would like to see major changes until the state can correct and put the proper guide rails on this bill. And, you know, I don't think it should be through a dispensary myself. So that's all the comment I have.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. I think there is a lot of questions, Brian. One thing about this is that the cities of Richmond and Berea, I think they've already acted.
Yeah, both have already passed their report.
And there's only so many licenses per any of these categories, because these are the state categories that they've created. There's only a certain number of licenses, and I actually read something the other day through CAECO. Y'all might have seen it on that this first application phase, I think, had almost 5,000 applications for the majority of those. Did you see that?
Yeah,
for
4,000 something. Yeah.
Was for like dispensaries.
Yeah.
You know, of course, there's only, I don't even know how many statewide dispensaries that you can even have. There was talk that Madison County might not even get one because of there's only so many. So
It's
so
a
little.
lottery that will be done in
October.
There was
October.
48 dispensaries or something like that, but that could change depending.
Oh,
on
it could, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, to Tom's point, it could change, you know, as we see states around us going to recreational use, that this is not the end all to this topic.
Yep.
And, you know, I think, you know, for us, you know, our job is to protect this county and its citizens. And, you know, I don't take that lightly. And I think we need to vet, because we can always change to do something that we banned previously. Sometimes that's not the same way. If you prove it now, you may not be able to change it later. So I want to encourage all of us to use caution anytime that, you know, this is going to have a public impact. And, you know, again, too, this, you know, the federal government has classified this, you know, as Schedule I. And there is talks of, you know, declassifying it to a 3. But that's on the level of opioids and everything else that you have to go to a pharmacist. And so, you know, federal government has not stamped their approval on this, even though state governments have. And, you know, there's a consequence when you give up your rights as a state to the federal government in their constitution. You know, when you give it to them, it's theirs. And so, you know, they still have something to say about it. So, again, I think the state has got the cart in front of the horse on this particular topic. And the fact that, you know, not to get on a soapbox, but there was plenty of things in the legislature that they could have addressed that deal with counties, like a jail, annexation, that were highly more needed than what this is, in my opinion.
And just for the record too, though, if the decision of the court is that that we would choose to not allow any of these in any zone or any use in the unincorporated limits of the county, it doesn't mean that it wouldn't be allowed inside the city limits of Berea and Richmond. I just want everybody to know that, because if we act, a lot of times citizens don't know that we govern certain things. We govern, I guess, all over, but there's certain things that we don't govern inside the city limits of either Richmond or Berea. So I just want everybody to understand that. So if we choose not to have a dispensary out in the county, that doesn't mean that there couldn't be a dispensary inside the city of Richmond or Berea if they so choose. If they choose as a governing body to allow dispensaries inside their inside their area. Okay. All right, so right now, we do have a motion and a second to approve first reading of ordinance 2024-15. So is there any more discussion?
Yeah, I just, one of the options that we had talked about was letting the citizens vote whether they wanted to allow this, and that was the direction I was hoping for, to let the people decide. But when we vote, I'm gonna vote on what the input I got from my citizens, from my constituency.
And if there's a direction, if members of the court, if y'all know there's a direction that the majority of us want to go in, I'm open to that. The last thing I want to do is for us to spend, if this is not a direction you all want to go, I don't want to spend tax money on advertising for a second reading and that kind of thing. So y'all just need to give me direction of what we need to act, right? We have to act. Now, we can act that we don't allow these uses, or we do not allow this in the unincorporated limits. We can act. But I just need some direction. And I would just ask you all to give us some of that direction and guidance before we go and advertise for a second reading of this ordinance.
I can tell you right now, that the Farm Bureau, the board of the Farm Bureau, they took a straw poll, and they were 100% opposed to cannabis production in the county.
And the other thing is, it doesn't mean that citizens of Madison County can't get prescribed it either, right?
That's right.
It's
they still got the cities.
They can go to the cities, or they could go to another county that they have approved it in. So I just need some direction from you all.
For me personally, I'm for what the zoning commission has done here, with the exception of the dispensary. I think we need to ban dispensaries in the unincorporated limits of the county. So, and that's the way I will vote today, based on that.
Brooke, we've not had this happen too many times, so I might need to be refreshed after this from a legal standpoint of just how we need to handle this moving forward. Okay, we want to make sure we get this right. Yeah. Because right now I have a motion and a second to approve this ordinance 2024-15. So if you don't approve this ordinance, since we do have a motion and a second, I think the correct way to do this would be to vote no, and then we could make another one with those changes that you could make another motion with those changes that you would want to add or take away from this document.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I was talking to council. Judge, would you repeat what you just said about taking something away from the document?
So right now, we have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2024-15 as it was read and it's written. So we have a motion to approve it. If you don't approve it, then we need to vote this down, and then you can make another motion. Somebody can make another motion to approve ordinance 2024-15 with whatever changes you want to make to it.
When you also have to change the regulations that came from zoning?
Well, no, because it's just a recommendation
Okay.
from them. We can make our own changes to it. They don't approve this. They just recommend it to us.
Is there a time limitation on this? If we vote this down, or?
No, we just have to act as I think this goes into effect January 1, I believe.
But we would not have to come back with a second vote today on it, if we didn't want to. We could have it, more discussion on it.
We could. So we could actually,
But-
technically we could vote this down, and then we just wouldn't have a second reading, and then, you all could send in your recommendations or whatever to Bert, and, and we could just kind of start all over. This was the recommendation from the planning commission. So just as a zone change is a recommendation from the planning commission, it comes from them how they see it.
Personally, I'd rather vote it up or down and then start over if there's physical court members that feel like they can't support what is.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Okay. So we do have a motion and a second then. And so if there's no more discussion, call the roll.
Master Combs,
No.
Master Lockmiller,
Yes?
Master Hughes,
No,
Master Barkin,
I abstain.
Well, I'll be daggone.
Judge Taylor.
That's a first. All right, so
got
I'll
it.
be a yes.
Then it fails.
Huh?
That's a tie.
I'll be a yes, and so that means that,
It's 2-2.
so that means
With
it
one
passes.
abstain.
That means it goes on for a second reading.
I
I'm
couldn't
pretty sure.
remember if it was, had to be
I think it-
voted in or
but we'll
pushed.
check on that. So
I
we'll
couldn't remember if a push was a loss or not. but-
Okay, thank you all very much,
Good.
appreciate it. Next, resolution 2024-91, Fraybrook Drive, Road adoption. Scott,
Good morning.
good morning, buddy.
Morning.
Resolution 2024-91, a resolution for adoption of county fiscal court to adopt roadway for county maintenance. Whereas Madison County Fiscal Court would like to adopt the following roadway, including street drainage, infrastructure, and existing sidewalks for county maintenance. And whereas the road is described as follows: Fraybrook Estates, Fraybrook Drive, 2,226 feet long by 24 feet wide. Whereas this road has been inspected by the Madison County Road Supervisor and is recommended for adoption. It is noted the gravel cul-de-sac, which is in the county's right-of-way, is to be maintained by the developer until further development of the subdivision is complete. Now therefore be it resolved that the fiscal court does hereby approve this resolution and authorizes the judge's executive and/or his designee to execute the same on behalf of the county.
Make motion to approve.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve, any discussion? Scott, on that situation there, did we, talk to the developer? It's a memory, about if there is no future development that we would have enough, there'd be enough land granted for us to have a cul-de-sac there?
It's included in that 2,226 feet.
It is, okay.
Yes.
Good, thank you, appreciate it. Anyone else, any comments? Hearing none, call the roll.
Master Lightmiller.
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Buckin.
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Let's see, next is, resolution 2024-92. This is the ASAP Harm Reduction Grant FY25 budget amendment. Good morning, Sarah.
Morning. A resolution approving budget amendments and budget carryovers for the fiscal year 25 ASAP Harm Reduction Grant per recommendation from the Madison County ASAP Board. Whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court passed Resolution 2024-04 on January 23, 2024, to act as the applicant agent for Madison County Agency for Substance Abuse Policy, or ASAP, to make an application for harm reduction through the Kentucky ASAP. And whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court finds it to be the public interest to continue to address our drug epidemic through education and awareness, and whereas the Madison County ASAP Board requests to amend the fiscal year 25 ASAP harm reduction budget and carryovers as outlined in your packet. Now therefore be it resolved that the fiscal court does hereby approve the budget amendments and carryovers and authorizes the judge executive and/or his designee to execute the same on behalf of the county. And we do also have Laura Nagel here to answer any questions.
Thank you, Laura, for being here, appreciate it. All right, members of the court, you've heard resolution 2024-92. What's the pleasure of the court, please?
So move.
Second.
Motion and second, any discussion?
I had questions that I talked to you about yesterday, Judge, and I also talked to Laura about this morning, so we're
Good.
good on that.
Good. Anyone else? Hearing none, call the roll.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Buckin.
Yes.
Master Combs.
Yes.
Master Lightmiller.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes. Thank you. Next, resolution 2024-93. This is the general ASAP grant FY25 budget amendment.
A resolution approving budget amendments for the fiscal year 25 general ASAP grant per recommendation from the Madison County ASAP Board. Whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court, as the request of the Madison County Agency for Substance Abuse Policy, or ASAP, assists in providing resources to enhance the health and well-being of the general public by acting as the fiscal agent for the program, providing fiscal operation of the agency. And whereas the Madison County Fiscal Court passed Resolution 2024-11 on February 13th, 2024, to act as the applicant agent for ASAP, to make an application to the Kentucky Justice and Public Safety Cabinet, Office of Drug Control Policy, for assistance to affect alcohol and substance abuse issues in Madison County, and to increase drug prevention and awareness activities funded by the program. And whereas the Madison County ASAP Board requests to amend the fiscal year 25 general ASAP budget and carryovers as outlined in your packet. Now therefore it be resolved that the Madison County Fiscal Court does hereby approve the budget amendments and carryovers and understands that it will sign assurances to comply with all applicable federal and state laws, rules, and regulations, especially Title VI of the Civil Rights Act and Section 504 of the 1973 Rehabilitation Act.
Thank you, Sarah. Members of the court, you've heard Resolution 2024-93. What's the pleasure of the court?
So move.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please state by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right, Resolution 2024-93 is passed. Hughes made the motion and Lockmuller seconded.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Laura, thank you so much.
Good morning. All I have to present today is the employee spotlight. This week's employee spotlight is George Smith. He's a systems administrator with the county. His peers speak of him. George is a great addition to our team. He's a kind, upbeat, and hardworking employee. You can always count on George to assist you with your IT needs. He isn't afraid to tell you if he doesn't know how to fix the issue, but he will do his very best to find a solution to the problem. So if you do happen to run into Mr. Smith this week, please give him a pat on the back. Thank you.
Thank you, Hannah. Appreciate it. George is fantastic. Thank a lot of him. He's a good addition to our team. All right. Next is we need to go into executive session. I would like to entertain a motion to go into executive session per KRS 61.810, Section 1, Subsection F, to discuss personnel matter.
So move.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Robin, do we know if the conference room is available? I know that it's good. Okay. All right. Call the roll. Sorry.
Master Combs,
Yes.
Master Lockmuller,
Yes.
Master Hughes.
Yes.
Master Botkin,
Say yes.
Yes.
Judge Taylor.
Yes.
See, I knew I couldn't wait to go to the bathroom because everybody else needs to go too. Well, no, Brian turns it on for me.
Everybody's patience,
Got it.
appreciate it. Kenny, Clerk Marjorie, we had a motion by Billy Ray Hughes, second by Tom Bakken to come out of executive session. So please call the roll.
Master Lockmuller?
Yes.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Master Bakken?
Yes.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Judge Taylor?
Yes. At this time, is there any action needed to be taken after the discussion with the personnel matter in executive session?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that we terminate Tyler Powell, effective date August 29th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, call the roll, please.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Master Bakken?
Yes.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Master Lockmuller?
Yes.
Judge Taylor?
Yes. Thank you all very much. Today's judge's report, I'm not going to make one. I do have some community announcements, and through our team and staff, we'll put some of these things and make sure we post these things on social media just as a matter of time. And I know there's some folks here that want to address the court. So I'm going to pass on my judge's report. Comments from magistrates? Steve.
Happy to be here. Thank you.
Billy Ray?
I want to mention Union City Ruritan's Fall Festival, September 21st. They're going to have food trucks, flea market, and they're going to have a beauty contest. So, man, you'll be safe from winning that.
Yeah, that's right.
I've heard Marty Sewell's gonna be in it.
I'd say he's be in the running.
Yeah.
Hey,
Tom?
just quickly, Judge, the only thing that I want to say, the state has been doing some cutting back of the brush off the sides of the roadways down on Lancaster Avenue. And there was some problems last week with people wanting to drive around the flagman. So they've got a flagman out there stopping traffic, and those guys are there for your safety, for the public safety. So if you see them out there, please obey those guys. I know everybody's in a hurry, but we want all those work crews to go home at night to see their families as well. And Scott, I want to thank you from the airport board for getting the airport road blacktop. And if anybody needs me, they can reach me at 200-9765. Thank you, Judge.
Thanks, Tom. Brian?
Mentioned mowing, they'll be mowing in Jackson Holler on 421, so that's a very dangerous spot anyway, so just keep that in mind when you're going through there. And other than that, I'm glad to be here, Judge.
Glad you're here, my man. Kenny, you got anything?
Yeah, I wanna, we'll have the sample ballot up on our website we approved, State Board approved yesterday, we'll approve it Thursday, it'll be up on Friday. I wanna please beg people, there's 2 amendments on there, and they're written by lawyers. If you know it's kinda like last time, if you know how you're gonna vote, you go in there and read it, you're not gonna know. It's gonna confuse you. So please, I ask folks to please be educated before you go to the polls. Look those up. There's also other information online that both sides are putting out, but please be prepared to vote for that before you get in the car to go vote. Don't wait to read it in the booth, because there's a lot of other people behind you that need to vote too.
My staff, Robin, helped me. Just thanks, Kenny, for a reminder. But Jimmy Markham, when I spoke to the Federal Retired Employees Association yesterday at Golden Corral, they were asking about that information, and so I told them I would email them that, the little brochure that shows where the voting locations are, the days, the times, and that kind of thing. Help me remember to make sure we get that emailed to that organization. Counselor, do you have anything today?
Judge, thank you.
Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Stotzy, you good? All right. Any department heads need to address the court today? Seeing none, comments from the audience? Sure. If you would, just come up to the mic and please state your name, where you live.
Hi, my name is Julie Clowers. I live in Kingston. I'm a 52-year-old wife, mother, and business owner who has called this community home for 30 years. I came here from Louisville to go to college. Went to college to teach school, never taught a day. Married a man with a flooring store, and I married into the best family in this county that you could ever imagine. And I've ran that flooring store ever since. My mother-in-law has ran the Clowers Corner Market. She's 86 years old. They bought it 47 years ago. They've been one owner, and that's been her ever since then. And we run our businesses there. I've raised my family there. I was told on Friday, because I called the fire department that right there beside me, and I was like, hey, why'd y'all tear down Safety City in the park? And the gentleman was like, I don't know. So I went on about a week, and somebody came in our store, and they stated that the county had decided to put the dog pound in my mother's backyard. My mother-in-law, excuse me. I'm talking 100 foot from where my 86-year-old mother-in-law lives. I don't feel like it's fair to pick up dog poop from somebody's place down the road and put it in my backyard. My mother does not deserve that, neither does my family. Would anybody here want it right next to them on their 86-year-old mother's backyard? I really don't think they would. I'm willing, as a citizen of this county, been here 30 years, I'll give you $100,000. Do you want me to buy you a place to put it? Because I don't care to. Money's not what's important to me. Family is. And I know you own 62 places all up and down Duncannon on farmland. Why would you take it from one residential area and put it in another one that's even more populated? There's no way that could work there. It could not happen. And I don't understand how that could be the logical best choice to put it. And I'm not against a dog pound. I had written stuff in here, and y'all have changed my mind about it, about the dog pounded work since I've lived in this county. And I thank you for waking up to me, because I was getting ready to dog it. But I'm proud of you for standing up and doing something right for the community. I'm not against a dog. And I'm not against a new shelter. And if there's anything that I could personally do to help the shelter, I will. But there's no way that you all can logically think that that is the best place to put a dog pound. My mother has given more to this community. We have fed people, clothed people. We leave our fruit out front. If you're hungry, walk by and grab your watermelon. We don't try to hide anything. We're not in it for the money or the glory. And I pray to God, because everybody here is going to meet a maker one day, that we all make the right choices. And no, I'm not overly religious, but I want you to know that family has raised, I'm going to say 50 people right there. And that, not just me, my installers, my delivery guys. I sell $1 million a year out of that little hole, and y'all can believe it or not, you can go back up on my taxes. That's just me, not even my sister-in-law and mother-in-law who run that store. Why in the world would you ruin that? I've done nothing but be a stellar, of this community. My daughter attends Eastern. She cheers there. I don't understand why this would be put on me, and I don't want it put on someone else. Like I said, my dog poop doesn't belong in your yard. Yours doesn't belong in mine. Let's find an agreement. Maybe I know out Duncannon there's farmland, nothing around it. It wouldn't hurt anybody to have it there. And I will stop. But I think it's wrong, and I think you've done my family wrong, and I do not appreciate it.
So thank you for your comments. Appreciate
You're
it.
welcome.
So first and foremost is there's not been a decision made yet. So I think that there is a total speculation. And I get very frustrated, and I'm sorry. It's my turn. It's my turn. It bothers me because I work every day in wanting to make sure that I please everyone in this community. And it's hurtful when as an elected official, a person that loves this community, a person that's been in this community longer than 30 years, trying to make the best decisions for everybody. And so for you to make comments that's accusing us of being bad to your family, I think is unfair. That decision has not been made. That decision is in the process of being made, but it's going to come to this governing body to make that decision. I never dreamed. I thought it was a great location. I've vetted this with a lot of people to make sure, because it's not just what I say. It's what we all say. It's that I want to make sure that I'm thinking through this correctly. To have 62 different pieces of property out there, I don't know where you're getting your information, but this county does not have 62 different pieces of property that we can put an animal shelter anywhere and everywhere. So that's false. I would be very open to have conversations with you all to see what your true concerns are, instead of just going straight to Facebook. And so I would love to have those conversations with you all. If I had no idea that your mom lived there, I had no idea. Yeah, I had no idea that. I've eat at Clowers. I like Clowers. For you all to sit there and say that we're being disrespectful to your family, we're not. The county owns property there. The county owns property. So I'm open to have a meeting with you all. I think who is Shelley? Sheila. I talked to Sheila yesterday. I had a good conversation. I told her that we're not acting on this today. that you all have misinformation that's untrue. But I'm open to have a conversation with you all, to see if there is compromise, to see what your true concerns are. The county owns that property. We've looked at the deeds from 1965 for that piece of property that the county has owned it.
I have 51 and it's supposed to be a police space there. I spent my day yesterday in the deed.
And again, these are things, this is not what this is meant for, all right? This is for us to be able to conduct business. This is if you can't come to resolve. And so I would love to have a meeting with you all, and we can schedule it. Absolutely. I mean, I called Sheila from my cell phone yesterday to call her back. I mean, I didn't know anything about this till Friday. I think you all called the office at 11:45. I had other meetings. I had a lunch with citizens of the community. I had some personal business to take care of that afternoon, and so I wasn't able to call anybody back till yesterday. But I talked to Sheila yesterday. If I don't know if you're aware. I mean, I told her that we're not acting on this today. That anybody's welcome to come to fiscal court. Anybody's welcome to get up and comment. But I'm open for conversation. So if y'all want to get with Robin, get with our county phone number, you can call me on my cell phone, 859-661-5705, and we'll schedule a meeting to sit down with you and your family just to talk through it. I don't want anybody else's dog poop on somebody else's property either. I don't want it to be a concern. I don't want it to be a concern for anybody. I don't want to build something new that we want to be proud of that tears down a business. I mean, that's not what we're about. And for that to be speculated, I mean, it kind of offends me a little bit, not having the concern. Mm-hmm. And I've been in Clowers before to get a sandwich made. There's been a dog in the market when I've been in there, you know, and so I don't know whose dog it was. It didn't offend me. I mean, you know, I went ahead and got my sandwich, and me and Jill and Robin actually came in there one day and had lunch. So I don't think this court or this county judge executive is there to tear any business down, because I'm all about business. I'm all about building people up and building this county up, not tearing it down. So I appreciate you all very much, and if you all would love to schedule a meeting, I'd love to have one with you, and we'll get some of our staff there, and we'll work together to make sure that this is a positive impact on our community. Okay?
I want to apologize for if I offended you.
No apology.
My point at all.
No.
6 hours of no sleep and stress.
Mhm.
Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, this is happening. It's been 20
And I don't even have a Facebook. I don't know who put it on Facebook.
I did.
Yeah.
Okay.
I started a
But I
petition.
don't even
Yeah.
have one, okay?
Mhm.
That
Well, I tell you what, for somebody that's been in here nine and a half years, you learn how to deal and not let social media bother you, because if you do, it'll drive you crazy. But it's disappointing a lot of times, the comments that people make about others, and people can put false information on Facebook. And you know what's the saddest thing about it? Is there's a lot of people out there that play armchair quarterback and believe it. That's what's scary, is that you can put something out there. You know, if I said Christmas is next Wednesday, are we all going to go out and decorate our homes? I'm not. But there might be some people that would.
Any
So,
other comments weren't even reacted to. I just needed names.
yeah.
And
Yeah, and that's good. I appreciate it. So please get with Robin back there, and we'll be glad to set up a meeting with you to discuss it. Our plan right now is we've been working with architects on the concept of a new animal shelter. Been looking on the cost, and so that will all be presented to the fiscal court. But let's see what your all's concerns might be, and see if there can't be some compromise. Okay? Thank you all very much. Anyone else from the audience that would like to speak? Yes, ma'am. Please come up and state your name and where you live.
Hello, my name's Erica. I live in Richmond. I was here the last meeting in Richmond, and I spoke on communication and how things were running at the shelter, and they addressed that today. I would like to say I did call the shelter and Richmond and what is it called? Code enforcement multiple times. They did call me back. I called Monday, and they called me back Friday. So I was pleased with that. And I want to say also that wanting things to get better, not personally attacking anybody. I feel like once it was took to Facebook, there was a lot of personal attacks and stuff, and that wasn't the goal. I'm not like anti-shelter. I want to help, and I want to volunteer, and I want to help coordinate. I am a foster for 2 different rescues, and they was speaking on, I wanted to kind of address that. It's kind of acting like a dog gets took from the shelter, goes to rescue, and there's a profit to be made. That's not true. That's not true. Yeah, they charge fees, just like the shelter charges fees. Say there's a dog that comes in and a rescue pulls it, we make sure that it has preventions for worms, fleas, ticks. I'm sure a lot of people have dogs and know what I'm talking about. You know, you gotta get them up to par. You have to make sure they're spayed or neutered. And a lot of times dental, especially with you got a dog that's over a year or 2 old, they need dental, and that's $600 right there. And adoption fees are about $250 to $300. So there is no profit at all. No foster, no rescue gets paid, and there's no profit to be made at all. I just wanted to make that clear. I'm a foster, so I take a lot of dogs in. They come live with me. It's a little bit different from the shelter because they kind of hold them too until they get homes. But yeah, I just wanted to make that clear that there was absolutely no profit to be made there at all. It's all volunteer work. Thank you.
Thank you, and that might be what it is with your groups you work with, but we heard different from that. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, we did. We heard
What rescue
different.
was it?
Well, I'll let our staff have that conversation with you, but we're not just making stuff up. I mean,
Yeah.
this is things that we heard from folks. And then I also want to address you said you're in Richmond, and I want to make sure that people understand that Richmond Codes Office is totally separate from Massachusetts Animal Shelter.
Right, yeah. No.
And Richmond's Codes Office is run out of the Richmond Commission,
Mm-hmm.
and it's 2 different entities. So we can't control if Richmond doesn't call you back.
Oh, I know. Yeah.
All we can do is control if our staff calls you back, and I'm on it.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah,
we're
they call
going
me
to
back.
call people back.
I spoke with Maggie,
Yeah,
actually. Maggie,
we are.
I think you talked to Maggie and Bobby, maybe.
Yeah, Bobby answered the phone, and yeah, we had a
Yeah,
conversation.
we're working through that.
They
And
said
as
they
you
had
all
phone
saw in our
issues, yeah.
PowerPoint, we're going to own it if we're not doing things to our best of our abilities. So I appreciate your comments today. Thank you for being here.
And I didn't mean to imply, and I think that's where I said with no margin, there's no mission.
Right.
You have to charge in order to be able to
Move forward.
and pay for the expenses that you're incurring. I think the information that had been shared with us is there is a perception that rescues give animals away to whomever wants them,
Right.
which is not the case.
Yeah,
Yet
I don't think
that-
that's the case on either.
Yet
and
they
we do a
have
lot
to
of background
charge,
checking.
and then there are some rescues that compensate people for transport for their expenses that they may incur.
Right.
So I think that's what I wanted to clarify, that those rescues do compensate volunteers because they incur expenses. And so if you have to get vet bills, or you have to transport an animal to
Timbuktu. Yeah.
Canada, I mean, wherever it is, that you're being reimbursed for those expenses is what.
Yeah. And as
And did you say that we don't charge rescues?
Correct.
Anything? So whatever costs.
Yeah, okay, I was like, okay.
So if we've given shots, if we've given
Yeah,
we
we incur
microchipped, if we've done whatever, we don't charge rescues at.
correct.
All right,
Right.
thank you.
You know,
Thank
it's a partnership to
Yeah,
get
yeah,
a
yeah.
great
Yeah,
home.
Good.
Oh,
Yeah,
appreciate it.
it's definitely a partnership. We do we make sure on both ends that everything's done. We do a lot. But for Black Cat Animal Rescue, I can speak there for sure. I foster for them. I do transporting and networking and events and.
Where are they at?
Well, it's based in Berea. It's
Okay.
kind of different. It's not like a shelter. Not everything's like in a cage. Everything goes to a home. So like I'm a foster home. I have like 5 cats
Yeah.
right now. You can imagine what chaos.
Yeah.
Chaos. If anybody would like to adopt, we have lots of adoptable cats. But yeah, they come to a home. So there's foster homes in Richmond and Berea, in county, out of county, everywhere.
Thank you for your kind words.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. Appreciate what you do. Thank you. Anyone else from the audience? Yes, ma'am. Please state your name. Hey, Clowers, Robin's right there in the back. She'll raise her hand right there. Yep. Thank you all.
Hi, I'm Dana Fusat. I live in Paint Lick, right on the edge of Berea. I don't speak publicly, so I'm going to read off what I have. So I visited the shelter last week, and the smell was so bad. I literally was gagging. I had to leave. It was that bad. Now, sir, if you would go right now and see what it smells like, it was horrendous. And I have a video I took while I was there that you can see where I said probably 20 times to people, "Whoa, this smells so bad." And I used to go down to the shelter before this new crew came in. Never did it smell like that, ever. My feet stuck to the floor. It was that bad. And
So I have to, question for you.
Sure.
We're not about the past right now. We're about moving forward, and making things better for
This
the
was
animals.
just last week I was there.
No, I understand. That's still in
And
the
people
past
are
as
saying
far as
it's
I'm
much
concerned.
better.
Yeah.
But
Well,
it
I
isn't
was
much
there. I
better.
personally was there, ma'am. I went 2 weeks ago.
Did-
Now, I wasn't there last week. They didn't know I was coming.
Well,
That was Wednesday after court, whatever our court date was. I could not believe how well it smelled. Now, back where the adoption area was, it was a little stronger, but it's still much better than it ever has been in the
this
past.
was when you walked in the door.
Yeah, no, that was not the way it was this Wednesday. But we're, ma'am, we are going to continue to get better, and I'll be leaving here today, and I'm going to go by the animal shelter.
Good, I hope so.
And see, I mean, we want it to be better. Now, the other thing I want you to realize too is that's 40 years of other people and other administrations, other leadership there, that I'm sure that there's a lot of smells in the concrete that's hard to get out. So if we want it to smell like this room right here at our animal shelter, I think that's unrealistic.
I expect some smells. It's a dog pound. It's a shelter. But this was overwhelming. And if that front building where the adoptions take place, what do the two buildings that people can't go back into smell like? What are the conditions those dogs are living in? I've messaged the shelter, and they told me the reason that the shelter was closed in the mornings was because they were doing deep cleaning. Really? I mean, it was horrible, and I do not lie. There was 23 out of, I think, 63 dogs up front for adoption. So they had a lot of dogs in the back buildings. I can't imagine to live in that condition. Those poor animals.
Did you ask any of our shelter staff? Did you ask them any questions about some of these things?
Yes, I did.
Between when you were there and
I asked
today?
when I was there. I have video of the whole thing. They didn't. They just said, "Oh well, we think it smells better."
I mean, okay. Anything else, ma'am?
Yes. So I also, while I was there, was asking about smaller dogs, and they told me there was one. And I said, "What about in the back buildings? Is there anything coming up for adoption that's small?" And they said no. The very next day, they put a small dog up for adoption for Pet of the Week. So, I'm not meaning to insult anyone here, okay? But it kind of, I feel like the community members that have come forward are being disrespected, because we aren't just bitching to bitch. We're very concerned about the conditions. We're animal lovers, and I know some of you people up here probably are not animal lovers, or you love your animals, but a dog is a dog. To some of us, a dog is not just a dog. I'm a 100% disabled veteran, and I lost my service dog. But that service dog was not just a dog. She was my lifeline. My animals are the reason I'm here today. If I did not have my animals, I would not be standing here. I would have no purpose. I would have no reason to live. And I think that the animals need to be respected. And the conditions that I saw, they definitely are not. It's a very serious issue. And it feels almost like a good old boys club here.
I'm gonna tell you, I take offense to that.
Well, I'm sorry you do, and I apologize.
Because I'm not for sure what you're here for. All you're doing is complaining. What solution do you have?
Ma'am, do you live in Madison County?
Yes, I do.
You do.
Yes, I do.
I mean, I've got meetings set up with some people that I feel like are very qualified and know more about animals than I do to try to get some good things going. So for you to stand up there and act like a good old boys club offends the hell out of me.
Well, I'm sorry, but that's how it feels.
Do you know that my name, my number, and my email address is on Madison County?
I don't even know who you are, sir.
Well, that doesn't surprise me. I'm a Madison County magistrate.
Okay.
Yep.
And
if you want to communicate with us, rather than
I would love to communicate with
get
all
on
of you.
Madison County website. Brian's contact information's on there. Mine's on there. Steve, the judge, Billy Ray, Tom.
Okay.
We're more than happy to help.
Okay.
But reach out to us and let's have a discussion.
I thought this was the place to bring up concerns.
We
So
know
I'm
there's
bringing up
concerns.
concerns.
That's why we had a whole
And
presentation.
If
done
you
today.
will allow me to continue, I will tell you why I say that. I will give you an example, okay? There was a dog in my neighborhood that came, I'd never seen it before. It came running, and I called the pound. This was not this group. It was before that. And they came and got the dog. It was emaciated. Half of its fur was missing. The owner came forward and they said, if you have to do this and this and this, take it to the vet, blah, blah, blah. And so he supposedly had done that. Well, about a month later, it came running back to my house, and it was in the same condition. I called the pound again. They came and got it. So there was a warrant put out for animal abuse. This person worked closely with city members, and he had 2 warrants because his dogs had killed another dog and because of the abuse and neglect situation with this dog. He was pulled over, and even though he had 2 warrants, he was let go. Berea Police Department would not arrest him. The shelter had to have the sheriff's department arrest him because the police department refused to. That's why I say it feels like a good old boy club.
Well, and ma'am, I appreciate your comments, but just understanding how local government works is, Berea PD is governed by the Berea Council, which is totally separate from this governing body. We're not.
I did not realize.
We're not Berea Council.
Okay.
So
we're the county.
We are the county. So we're the unincorporated. We're outside the city limits. Now, there are some duties that Madison County Fiscal Court has to provide to all citizens, right? Elections coming up. Madison County Fiscal Court pays for all elections. It doesn't matter. I don't want to bore you with the history of county government and how the law dictates, but if Berea PD did not act in good faith or what have you, we can't do anything about that, or that would be Mayor Fraley of the city of Berea.
Okay, I was unaware of that. I was just trying to give you an example of why I said that. So,
and how long ago was that?
Or you?
How long ago was that?
Maybe it was last summer, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So.
But what I would encourage you, ma'am, is to again call my office, talk to our. We'll have sit downs. We can schedule meetings to work through it. We're hearing the concerns of the citizens. We gave a presentation today that we're working through some of these things, and so we want the animal shelter. We want everybody to be happy.
And I'm sorry if I upset people, but honestly, it's not my intention. My concern, though, is not whether I upset people or not. It's, are these animals being treated okay? Are they in the best condition possible? And from what I've seen, they are not. Mm-hmm. I have 30 years under my belt working with animal controls and rescues in some of the worst places, California and Texas. Horrible.
How many animals do you have, ma'am?
I have 6 dogs, 3 cats, 4 parrots, and about 12.5 chickens. Mm-hmm. And you can walk in my home anytime, and it does not smell.
Yeah.
not one bit. So, I mean, I know how having a bunch of animals is hard to keep up with, because I do it from morning to night.
Well, I appreciate your time here today, and we're going to continue to make improvements at our shelter. I think we've proven that today, and we're going to continue to prove it in the future. And I'll look into the situation about still smelling, because I have a total different opinion of that from a little longer ago, but just about 2 weeks ago tomorrow was when I was there and was so happy with how it smelled. So I'll be glad to look into that. Thank you for your time.
That's the main reason I went to the shelter, to see for myself. I didn't want to just believe hearsay.
Did you go to Facebook with your video?
No.
You didn't? Okay.
No, I did not. Okay. But I will gladly show you all the video, you know. And
I would hope that you could just maybe get with Maggie. She runs the facility. Have you met her?
No, I have not. She was not around when I was there.
Well, but I think this would be a good time for you to introduce yourself to her. Obviously, I gave you my card. I'm more than happy to communicate with you. But she's here. Please talk to her. She's the supervisor out there.
Okay.
And I know if there's something that is not right, she wants to correct it.
And I want to help. I'm
good.
Not here just a bitch. Yeah. You know, I want to help.
There you go.
Thank you.
There you go. Thank you for that.
I mean, whatever I can do for the animals. I used to foster for the shelter. You know, mamas with new babies and stuff like that. I'm here to help, not just bitch.
Well, I'd say Maggie would love to have any help that she can get, because she's got a big task, but she and the people out there are trying to make it better. And if you want to help her, I'm sure that she'd love to communicate with you, and I'd be happy to communicate with you as well.
Okay, great.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Anyone else? And you can come up to this, Lee, if you want. You either podium, it doesn't matter, whichever one.
Hello, my name is Lee Miller. I spoke a few weeks ago, same situation. I was very emotional last time. I apologize. I'm not now. I have it together. I requested and paid and pulled the records from March 1st to August 5th of this year. A large portion of that was with all new management. Jill stated earlier there were a lot of missing intake IDs, which would be just blank spaces, and those could be tests or typos. And I pulled a second set of records just to double check, and actually a lot of those were actually missing animals, and I found them and I plugged them all in. I found their intake numbers, they fit in all those blanks. And coincidentally and sadly, those were all animals that died at the shelter. So I'm not sure when I first pulled the records that those were not on there. I don't know how the system works. When you pull records, they print them off. There's a timestamp and a date at the top. There's the website at the bottom. They kind of look like this. I've highlighted and made a big mess on them, but I have circled a ton of animals that were not accounted for, or we don't know where they went. A lot of them have been on a hold for 6 months, and those are eventually going to be euthanized. I think that long period of time is very hard on a dog. It's very inhumane, and then you put them down anyways. And I think that 6 months of stress and isolation, there's no windows, it's dark, the smell is very hard to deal with. I think all of that is really hard on something for 6 months, and then they either pass away on their own or they're put down. I just think those are things that really concern a lot of people, and this is just me saying this because I have this in front of me and I've went over it for 3 months and I've not been to sleep. But
are those Lee, are those opinions that you have there, or are those facts?
What
the opinions of 6 months is too long, or?
No, I'm just saying, like, it'll show you when a dog comes in and goes on a hold and it's still there to
But you said you think that that's too long. That
right?
Is that an opinion? Is that your opinion, or is that?
Well, do you think if you sat like in a box for 6 months and then you were put to sleep anyway, I would want to be put to sleep 6 months ago.
So what do you think that's the right time for euthanasia? I mean, you're referring to euthanizations.
Well, I don't know
when do you think that the right time is to be able to say the animals not being adopted? So what is that time frame? How many days is that that you
I don't
would think?
I don't think every situation is different, so I don't think there's a time frame, but
But
I
you're
think,
saying 6 months is too long.
right.
You're saying 6 months. So what's not too long? I couldn't
would
get you to
say-
answer this in the meeting that we had together either. And
Well, I said that the situation is always different, so,
because Maggie had a great story about an animal that kind of,
And I think
is a different opinion, I think, than maybe what you have of a success story of
Right.
of that animal actually making it to a loving home. And again, I go back to our objective is to get every animal that we can into a loving home. That's our mission. Jill, do you want to say a few things to that?
I
I'm not
think
sure.
that a couple of things I want to address. One, I think, Judge, I'm going to correct you if you don't mind. I think
Sure.
I think in our meeting, Lee, you said you thought 30 days was, and because I wrote it down because I think that 30 days was kind of in your mind the limit of.
do you think past stray hold is I think the stray hold is long enough. The shelter is not a place for a dog to thrive. It's like a prison.
And
I think after stray hold, it's time to call, get rescue, post for adoption. If they're aggressive and there's nothing to do with them, the last resort should be euthanized, but there's also a chance you could have someone do behavioral testing. You could call a rescue that works with a large aggressive dog. There's tons of them.
I think that
but sitting there a long period of time, it's not getting better.
We will all agree, and I think that, to your point, it's very circumstantial. There are animals that handle shelter life pretty well, actually great.
But that doesn't mean they should be there.
And I think our position is we're not going to make a stance to euthanize an animal that is handling shelter life great. And I know that's what is being requested. And perhaps that may have even what has been done at points. But I don't think that, our goal is to work towards a no-kill shelter, which that means 90% of animals are going to have a great live outcome. And if we're working towards that, I think if an animal is handling shelter life and they get adopted or we can find rescue and we can work towards that, I think that's our goal. And I'm not ashamed of that. I don't think our team is ashamed of that. I don't think that working towards good outcomes is something we should be ashamed of. The other thing I want to clarify and that you mentioned is the reports that you received. So our animal tracks system, we have some predetermined reports that we can run. Based on your open records request, you asked for very specific things. We were able to put the time period in which you asked for in some of those things like intakes, special releases, and it generates from that auto report. That's why you saw that in the format that you did.
So when I first pulled the records, all the missing animals, where would they have been?
When you ask us to, hey, these animals are missing, we sat down and had a great conversation. As Judge Taylor mentioned, that's how you work towards success. So we sit down and you ask for those things. You're like, hey, I need to know these specific things. We don't have the ability to customize with our system, hey, here's a special report for Lee because she wants these certain things. So we had to go into our database, into our animal tracks database, into the raw data and export it with our IT team for the information specifically that you wanted. So it looks different. It does look different. That is not us falsifying information. Based on open records law, I'll probably get in trouble for this, but we could have said no. But we want to give you the information that you've asked for. So when we export that to an Excel sheet, and it shows you all of those animal identifiers, and it says null, and it says test, and it says all those things in it, it's going to look different.
But a lot of the null and tests were actually animals that we found when we requested the records again. They were animals that went to rescue the same day they came in on intake, which is illegal, or a dog that just died the same day at the shelter. Those actually were animals, they weren't tested.
And so the ones for in-shelter, and I will be the first to say, we didn't have a category for in-shelter deaths. So we did not...
Is that not recorded?
It's recorded, and it's recorded in our database, but we did not, it's in the notes section. And so we had to manually go in, and we have fixed that. We have modified our intake, we modified our, and fixed it. Now we can run a query and say, hey, where are the in-shelter deaths? We couldn't do that. They were lumped in.
Even if they died the
I'm
same
not
day at
hiding
the
that. I'm
shelter?
admitting to you that there was not a category for in-shelter deaths.
When the dog comes in, even if it dies the next day at the shelter, it should be on the intake list, right?
It should be, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. So I was missing a lot of animals on the records. And then at the meeting, when I asked where they were, that's when I got the second set of records, but they're not official. It was just a list that was typed.
That's what I'm saying. Those are as official as they get. I cannot generate a report out of our animal track system that doesn't exist. So the fact that it looks a certain way and the new information, it is still an official county document.
Well, but I don't understand why I didn't get an official document when I paid for it and I requested it online.
I mean, I don't know how else to explain that.
We were trying to.
We were trying to give you.
We were trying to accommodate what you requested.
Right,
We
but without
could
the
have said.
record, I just
We
don't
could have
know.
said we don't have to provide you that because we don't have it. We
Because
created
it doesn't
it.
exist. You can only request records that exist at the time of the request. You cannot request, I would like a list of this, and then a list of that, and then a list of this, to make me a spreadsheet for that, so that I can compare X, Y, and Z.
Well, I did that.
It's
and
an
I
open
got all of
records
those
request,
lists.
and if the record does not exist, the request is denied.
Okay, but what I was saying is I got a list of every animal there, and it was missing a ton. And then I was given an additional list of dogs that died at the shelter, and those were the missing ones I was looking for. So what I was saying is I never got any official government record of these animals ever coming into the shelter, and it just happened to be ones that passed away at the shelter, or like illegal things that were like they left the same day they came in, they went to rescue the same day they came in, they, before stray hold was up, they were adopted or went to rescue. Those were all coincidentally the ones that I was looking for. So that was raising huge concerns. But to finish, I was going to read what I found for the law. Animal control officers should seize and impound any dog that does not bear a rabies tag or any identification and is found running at large. Any dog which an officer seizes should be impounded and confined in a humane manner. Impounded dogs should be kept for no less than 5 days unless reclaimed by owner. Any animal shelter, public or private, which takes in stray animals and does not have regular hours for public access should post semi-monthly in the newspaper or with the highest circulation in the county, the shelter location, the hours of operation, the period that impounded animals should be held, and a contact number. When I had my private meeting with Judge Taylor and Jill Williams, I showed a concern for a ton of missing information on the records I pulled over a 6-month time frame. I was told that much of that information was not missing at all. It was just an animal ID test or trial when training an employee. Jill compared it to retail, as she is a store owner of a local boutique, stating that those missing numbers are just tests in the system. For example, if you entered too many shirts or product at once and had to delete one. So it uses up space in the system, but nothing was ever actually there. After weeks and endless late nights of research, I discovered through the new records that most of these missing numbers were actually animals, and sadly they are all the ones that were deceased from illness in the shelter, with a handful of additional euthanasias that were not recorded. None of these deaths were recorded on the initial records I asked for, and none of these animals have information except that they died. The second set of records I requested and paid for were not an official document, rather just a typed list of animal names. I have the receipt where I requested and paid and was handed a hand-typed list. Piecing these together, I noticed a lot of red flags, lots of animals being released to rescues the very first day they entered the shelter, not following the required 5 to 7 day stray hold. This surprised me because our rescue tried to pull a dog on day 7 of a stray hold last month, and we were told that her owner actually came in and reclaimed her on day 7. Only to find out this was not true. The dog stayed there an additional week and was taken to an adoption event that following weekend to be adopted under the table. No information was in the system of this dog, and no profile was listed on the website for people to view her. This was very suspicious. Jill's response to me was, "Why is this dog so important to your rescue? Because you could pull another one that's been there longer." She kept stating that she was confused while we were focused on this specific dog named Liz. She did not see anything wrong with this, although it was concerning and confusing. I'm not sure if stray hold is actually important to the shelter staff or if it's used as an excuse to hold animals. After this situation with Liz, the director Maggie told us that all rescues from here on would not allow rescues to pull animals until 2 weeks after stray hold was up. That means an animal will be in the shelter not only after their 7-day stray hold, but plus an additional 14 days minimum for no reason. We felt that this was a little bit unfair and spiteful. Her reasoning was to give locals in Madison County the chance to adopt dogs before rescues could pull. This means that the shelter is housing, feeding, vetting, and caring for animals much longer than needed. The goal of the shelter is to get animals out of there as quick as possible, whether that is to reclaim with their owner or find their forever home. Keeping an animal a second longer than stray hold is adding extra stress to both the staff and the animal. Maggie also stated that the public needs a chance to adopt animals before rescues can pull because, quote, "We are getting 5 to 7 people in the lobby daily looking for dogs. We want to give them a chance to adopt. Sadly, they have had little to no adoptions weekly if this is true." Besides releasing an animal to rescue on the first day of stray hold, I also noticed that on the records a ton of animals have died on the same date from illness. This happens far too often. I counted 71 animals that died, a combination of illness and euthanasia, inside the shelter in 6 months. Only 200 animals came in during this time. That means 40% of them did not survive. That's almost half. I also saw that many animals pulled by rescues did not have information. No intake info, no dates, no breed, no gender. It shows just that a rescue pulled. I'm not sure where the additional information was. I was also told by Jill and Judge Taylor that every animal that steps in the shelter is accounted for. Part of managing the shelter means moving dogs, promoting adoptions, finding rescue, or unfortunately, as a last result, euthanizing. At some point, staff has to be responsible and not say they are full or at capacity. If you are full, that's okay, but you have to make an effort to get animals out. There will always be strays and puppies and kittens. There will always need to be space. This is just a handful of concerns I have regarding these official government records. I'm very curious to hear the response and find the rest of these records. And the last thing I wanted to say, I have 2 people that sent in their statement. I have an anonymous person.
We're not going to listen to those today, Lee.
Okay.
No.
I had 2 people that wrote. And
We're not going to list those today. Thank you for being here today, Lee. I appreciate it a lot.
Can I ask her one more question?
No. The time has come. You can email us, and we'll continue to communicate with you. Thank you so much for being here. Appreciate you letting us know your concerns once again. Anyone else from anyone else? Yeah, but I do take it very serious. I absolutely do. I think it shows today that we take it very serious, and we're gonna change some of this too, because most of the governing bodies give like 3 minutes for people to comment. So some of my staff, we need to look that up. I know that's what Bria does. I've always tried to honor and let people have their time to talk, but some of this is getting a little ridiculous. Yes, ma'am. State your name, please.
I'm Dakota Rollins, and I live in Madison County. I'm not inside the city limits. I think first I just want to ask about Hoss. He's been pending rescue for months.
We're not going to answer questions. This is a comment to the court.
So Hoss has been pending rescue for months, and he is still there pending rescue. We had outside rescue for Hoss that they have denied. And now Hoss is not up for adoption or anything. He's still in rescue. So we'd like to know what the outcome of Hoss is going to be. Also, Summer's been there for months. She's been listed as pending adoption. That is said to be a staff favorite, and she could have been adopted numerous times currently. I think the shelter does need to be open at least 1 weekend a month. I think that's very important because there are people who work. All of us have jobs outside of this. I mean, I should have been at work at 9 o'clock this morning. The rescue that you were talking about is Foha. It is out of Rhode Island. She took 68 dogs from March 1st until August 5th. There are 8 other rescues. They took 1 or 2 dogs, and now FOHA is required to send an email that may or may not be answered. She pays for that out of her pocket to have a bus come down here and pick up animals all over Kentucky and take them back to Rhode Island, where they do have a chance to be adopted. They do have breed restrictions up there. You can't have pit bulls, bully mixes, anything of that nature. But any and all small dogs up to medium-sized dogs and puppies, she can take puppies, but not of the bully breed. I think that email is outdated. I think there was a text thread that was shut down. They didn't want to do texting, which is fine. I understand that. That can't be official. But not being able to call and say, hey, what do you have today? Versus sending an email and maybe it'll be responded to a week later is kind of a problem. It's outdated. It's outdated. I don't think that we still have an answer for the behavioral testing, so we're not doing any behavioral testing at all in the shelter, or do we know who conducts that?
No, I
because
don't.
we have a lot of dogs still on behavioral hold that have been there for months. And I think that goes back to what Lee's saying. Months in behavioral hold is a problem. It's a problem. And I'm not saying that, 3 weeks is enough. I'm not saying that 6 months is enough. I think every case, it should be on a case-by-case basis. What kind of aggression are we talking about? There are levels of aggression that are different. Is it possible for the Kentucky Department of Courts to do an audit on the shelter? Is that something that I can request?
I don't know who you're referring to, ma'am.
It is
The Kentucky Audit of Courts?
the Kentucky Department of Courts Office, Kentucky Court of Justice, Office of the Audits. Can they not do an auditing on the shelter?
You would have to contact them. It sounds like a state office.
Okay, so I will do so and ask that they do an audit on the shelter and shelter funds. And then
Now, make sure you understand shelter funds are audited every year because that's part of our general fund. By Kentucky law,
Right.
the state auditor has to actually audit all of our funds.
Right, so I would like to see them compared with the records as well. I'd like to see.
online.
I'd like to see.
All of our audits are online.
And I understand that. I've seen those. I would like to see that funding and versus the records of the shelter put together to see these dogs.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that exists.
Yeah, so it is. It's
it
under,
does?
it's right here. I've actually got it pulled up here on my computer. The only other thing I want to talk about is the dangers of Fabuloso. As an owner of a cleaning company, that is not something that I would recommend using in the shelter. It is known for its gastrointestinal distress and toxicity in pets. That's an absolute no-no. Almost as bad as bleach.
So you wouldn't use that inside the waiting area?
I would not use that, period. That is a terrible product to use. I don't know if you know.
Well, I just want to make sure you understand that, you're painting a picture. We're using that out in all the areas of the shelter. The only place I think we use that, correct me if I'm wrong, Maggie, but is in the reception area, in the lobby area.
Right. So a better product for you would be Odoban. It's less dangerous for animals, and I don't know if you know, but dogs do soak up toxicities through their paws as well as cats. And I mean, even kids, kids are gross. They like to lick things. So anytime that you're using a Fabuloso product, you're putting toxins there for the animals to walk across, for kids to touch. It's just not a good product to use. But like I said, Odoban would be a much better product, and it's also an odor neutralizer as well. I also would like to know, is there a way for us to get the vet records for Margot? Mm-hmm.
I don't know the answer to that. We can check with legal.
I was going to say, if you could look into that for me as well, and then if I need to, I can go online and request those. The only other thing is I'd like to know the names of the 2 Yorkies that were released to rescue on June 11th. They were never on the intake, and it was stated that they were bathed before leaving the shelter. However, they'd been there for months, and they had been urinating inside themselves because they were so matted that they couldn't even pee. I have pictures and video.
So this particular portion of the proceeding is for public comments. If there are specific questions directed to a specific department or department head or request for records, there's an appropriate avenue to submit those through an open records request or to contact the department head or contact the county and make an appointment to discuss those things. But I think this is just comments from audience members, not questions.
Sure. Okay, so I'll request that as well. But I do have video of those dogs, and it's pretty bad. A matter of fact, I believe I'll go ahead and email those to all of you so
Sounds
you can
good.
see.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. Anyone else?
Judge, I don't want to, I know we've had a long meeting, but there's two things. Seek to understand, then seek to be understood. There's a lot of complexity that goes on in government that I think people need to educate themselves on, basically, just to be out walking around as a citizen, to be a responsible citizen here. And the other thing is that I want people to understand that it seems like, especially the Clowers, came in here like that, fists up, ready to fight. And in your administration, that's totally unnecessary. And I want people to understand that pick up the phone, Master Lockmuller, give me a call. Let's talk about it. I don't think that anybody should be afraid enough that they have to come in here and be upset and scared, and that you might not be able to tell everybody what they want to hear. But there's no reason to come to these meetings in a public forum and bring up small issues over and over again when they should be addressed outside of these meetings. And I agree with you. If somebody from the public has something to say, they need to come here and say it. But discussions and questions and back and forths are not what this meeting is for. This is the fiscal court making fiscal decisions, which is spending money for the county. But I just want everybody to know that you are open to talk to anybody about anything at any time. And you've proven that over and over again. But not everybody knows that. And I want, that word needs to be spread. You don't need to be afraid to come to in this county, you don't need to be afraid to come to your government with a problem or a question, because it'll help you.
Yeah, a lot of the work we do is outside this meeting. I know that. And just from an administrative, I mean, that's how we get set up. It's run because of my elected position, being the administrator. But I appreciate those kind words. Anyone else in the audience? We do have a Facebook. As bad as I hate to, we got to, because that's what we do, right? No matter how long it takes. Do we have any Facebook comments?
205.
I mean, is there any way to, is there questions?
At 100.
You should give that to Jill.
I mean, we can try to answer those, I guess, outside of this, but.
I won't answer them, but through the 100, there were two questions. What was the number for Richmond Animal Control? That's 859-625-6404. That gets you directly to them.
Could you repeat that a little slower one more time?
859. You put the talk faster. 859-625-6404. That is Richmond Animal Control directly. And the other question that I could get through was, how many alcohol-induced violence crimes have there been?
That would be
I think that was probably in connection with the cannabis discussion.
Those are the two we were able to cipher out of.
Yep.
Lots of comments. Yeah, there's so many you can't.
The one question we'd have to refer to the district court. I guess that would be a district court.
Yeah, I don't think that's a record that's maintained by the county judge executive's office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thank you. All right. Appreciate everybody being here today. Need a motion and a second to pay the claims and approve the transfers.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, they call the roll, please.
Master Buchan?
Yes.
Master Combs?
Yes.
Master Lockmuller?
Yes.
Master Hughes?
Yes.
Judge Taylor?
Say yes.
Yes. Our next meeting is September the 24th, 2024. That'll be in Richmond. Again, our next meeting is September 24th, 2024 in Richmond at the Richmond City Hall, Richmond City Commission Chambers. That will be at 9:30 a.m. Thank you all very much for being here. Appreciate everybody. Bye-bye.
We're gonna adjourn.
Make a motion to adjourn.
All in favor, aye.
Who was second? Anybody?
Me.
Oh, I thought maybe somebody will second that.